When he says it, he means it, and you don't get to bend it and twist it to what you want. To reach the lost Israelites, the message has to go to everybody, and then the whomsoever wills will come. The ones who he draws will come. By the way, knowledge meaning what? Having a relationship with the truth. Oh, you learned, and you got tons of information, but have you come into a relationship with truth? The scriptures from cover to cover is really simply one story. The story of fear and doubt versus faith and belief. That's what it is. And we get to read about those that feared and those that had faith. Those that doubted and those that trusted. And here we're seeing a bunch of people walking in fear and having doubts. But yet in verse 30, Caleb silenced the people before Moshe. So he got up there and he got their attention. He said, hey, hold on. He said, let us go up at once and take possession, for we are certainly able to overcome it. I mean, he's like, see again, here's a leader. Caleb's showing himself. He says, hey, let's go at once. Let's go right now. Let's go. But the men who had gone with him said, we are not able to go up against those people, for they are stronger than us. Now, I know we read this and we think these have got to be the dumbest people ever lived because, after all, Yahweh just done these signs. He just destroyed Egypt, and here they are already panicking. But you know what? Don't you do the same thing? I mean, Abba's done such amazing things in your life, and yet you still don't trust him. You still panic. You still show fear and doubt. See, so be careful we don't judge these people too harshly. Okay? Because they are us. They are us, and we are doing those things. They said, oh, no, I mean, they're stronger than we are. We can't overcome this. And they gave, by the way, before I interrupt myself here, I just want to say, I get people coming in on a regular basis, not huge amounts, but they'll come in on a regular basis, 2 or 3 here and there. They get very excited that this is how I finally found where I'm supposed to be. Then they go home and they tell all their friends and family members about it and get their teeth kicked in. And then they say, this is too hard. And they quit. This is too hard. And then I don't see them ever again. Does that sound like a parable to anybody? Anybody pick up what parable that is? The sower of the seed? The person that first gets excited and take the word with joy, and then they go home and tell their friends, and it gets choked out and kicked in the teeth. And you see, that's because there's no roots. These people coming out of Egypt had not had their roots yet. Abba says, I'm going to give you 40 years to develop roots. After this event that we're reading right now, he said, I'm going to have to give you time to develop roots because you guys didn't get the roots. Because it didn't take much to go boo, and you're in a panic. And so and by the way, this is after the sea parting. So again, you may judge them, and I don't judge them, because I can find out all about what happened in your life, and I go, and after all that, you're worried about this? You come and counsel with me. If I knew about the all that he's already done in your life, and now you're going to come to me with whatever, I'm going to go, and you're worried about that? Because I've had people say to me, I don't know what to do. My boss just changed our schedule, and now everybody's got to work Saturdays twice a month. And what's the problem? Well, if I don't work Saturday, I'm going to lose my job. Okay, what's the problem? Well, I mean, wait, here's the best part. Well, Yahweh wouldn't want my family to starve, would he? So obviously I have to do it. Why is that the only choice?
Amen.
I mean, why is there not a choice? Yahweh can give you another job or a better job, in which case your family still doesn't starve and you don't work Saturday. Amen. Why is that not in the list of options? Because I hear people trying to do that spin because it's not yet in their heart, because they're still falsely perceiving that the evidence that their boss is in charge of their finances. Your boss, meaning the guy writes his name on your paycheck, he is not in charge of your finances. Okay? The only one in this room who's got a boss that actually is in charge of their finances is me. My boss is in charge of my finances because I work for Yahweh. All the rest of you, Yahweh still determines your finances, although he's not, quote unquote, your boss. So don't let your feel like your boss has anything to do with your finances. Your boss is simply where you chose to go or where a door opened to deal with your finances, at least for the moment. Oh, but you're afraid to change jobs. We're always afraid to change. Don't be afraid to change jobs. I mean, I look at people all the time. Why do you think Yahweh is not capable of giving you another or better job? And I always throw in the or better. What if he gave you a better job? Because quite frankly, before this came up, you were probably wishing you had a different job anyway.
Exactly.
There are people that will complain to you about how horrible their job is until all of a sudden it's being threatened. Now they're like, oh, no, I want my job. I want my job. I want to go kiss my boss's boots. Stop doing that. Your Heavenly Father can give you a better job. And by the way, you can also come to your ministry, as Dan in the back has done, when he had a job where his shifts got changed. He was working at in a factory of some sort of manufacturing where he was then going to have to work Saturdays as part of the shift. And I simply wrote him a letter to his HR department, and we got it fixed. That can happen too.
That's right.
Okay, and so Dan has that testimony that he can share with you, where we simply wrote out the letter and sent it in, and the HR realized that they had to allow and respect his religious observances. And so that can happen as well. You can reach out to leadership for help. But you're not reaching out to leadership for help because you're panicked and whatever. You're saying, I don't know what to do. I know there is a solution, but I'm coming to you to help get some discernment and wisdom as to what the solution may be. But come expecting a solution. And it doesn't mean your leadership will have it, but just know that there is one. So when you come to me, you can say things like, I know there's a solution. I'm hoping maybe you have some insight, but I know there's a solution. Because there has to be. We have verses that, do you not believe this book? If you believe this book, then you know it says that he doesn't allow you to go into a situation that doesn't provide a way of escape. And he also says that those things that come upon you are normal. Like these are the things that are usual that come upon man. I mean, this stuff happens. And so we need to, where's our fear and where's our trust? Where's our belief? Where's our doubt? And unfortunately, we show a lot more fear and doubt than we show trust and belief. We're good? We're live? Okay. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Awesome. If you'll all rise, we'll begin with the sounding of the shofar. Amen, amen. All right, let's go ahead and sing praises to our King.
Shabbat Shalom, hey, Shabbat Shalom, hey, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, hey, Shabbat Shalom, hey, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat.
Come, let us praise the Lord and sing him a new song. Come, let us sing his praise together with the saints, with all the righteous ones. Let Israel rejoice in her Creator. Let the children of Eretz Zion be glad in their King. Let them praise his name with dancing, making music with the tambourine and harp. For the Lord takes pleasure in his people. He will crown the humble with salvation. Let the saints rejoice in this order, sing and dance unto the Lord. Come, let us praise the Lord and sing him a new song. Come, let us sing his praise together with the saints, with all the righteous ones. Let Israel rejoice in her Creator. Let the children of Eretz Zion be glad in their King. Let them praise his name with dancing, making music with the tambourine and harp. For the Lord takes pleasure in his people. He will crown the humble with salvation. Let the saints rejoice in this order, sing and dance unto the Lord. Let them praise his name with dancing, making music with the tambourine and harp. For the Lord takes pleasure in his people. He will crown the humble with salvation. Let the saints rejoice in this order, sing and dance unto the Lord. Sing and dance unto the Lord. Sing and dance unto the Lord.
Arise and shine. Arise and shine. Arise and shine, for thy light is come. The glory of the Lord is seen upon thee. shall come unto thy light, and kings to the brightness of thy rising. Lift up thine eyes round about and see, they gather themselves all together. So arise and shine, for thy light is come. Arise and shine, for thy light is come. Arise and shine, for thy light is come. The glory of the Lord is seen upon thee. The glory of the Lord is seen upon thee. And the sons of those who afflicted thee, and all who have despised you will bow down. Then they shall call you the city of the Lord, Zion of the Holy One of Israel. So arise and shine, for thy light is come. Arise and shine, for thy light is come. Arise and shine, for thy light is come. The glory of the Lord is seen upon thee. The glory of the Lord is seen upon thee. Arise and shine, for thy light is come. Arise and shine, for thy light is come. Arise and shine, for thy light is come. The glory of the Lord is seen upon thee. Oh, arise and shine, for thy light is come. Arise and shine, for thy light is come. Arise and shine, for thy light is come. The glory of the Lord is seen upon thee. The glory of the Lord is seen upon thee. The glory of the Lord is seen upon thee.
I praise from shore to shore in all your creation. Let it ring from mountain tops, let my voice proclaim the tender mercies of my Lord. Yeshua is his name. Messiah of Israel is he, restorer of our nation. Hope of David now we see, bringing us salvation. Root of Jesse, Lion of Judah, Judge of Israel. Now we praise you for your joy and love that never fails. Jesse, Lion of Judah, Judge of Israel. How I praise you, Lord, you're the rock of my salvation. You I praise from shore to shore in all your creation. Let it ring from mountain tops, let my voice proclaim tender mercies of my Lord. Yeshua is his name. Yeshua is his name.
Don't wave the darkness. You are the light of the world. You are Yah, you are Yah, you are Yahweh. You are my Elohim. You have saved me. You are my salvation. You help me when I'm in need. We have to step off the throne. We are not our own. Let Yahweh reign. Sing praises to His name. We have to step off the throne. We are not our own. Let Yahweh reign. Sing praises to His name. On my knees and pray to my Elohim. I go to your holy place, only wanting to seek your face. We have to step off the throne. We are not our own. Let Yahweh reign. Sing praises to His name. We have to step off the throne. We are not our own. Let Yahweh reign. Sing praises to His name. Step off the throne. We are not our own. Let Yahweh reign. Sing praises to His name. Sing praises to His name. Sing praises to His holy name. Sing praises to His name. Sing praises to His name.
Amen. Amen. Sing praises to His name. We have to get off that throne because we are not our own. Let Yahweh reign and sing praises to His name. Amen. Father, we come before you and we're just so blessed and so filled with love and appreciation and joy for this day that you've created from the beginning of time, knowing it's a day that we would need, a day to take time away from the cares of this world and all of its concerns and all of its stresses and all of the other just stuff that's not of you, and to come and spend one day every week in your presence, a day away from all that stuff, focusing on you and what you're doing in our lives and your plan for the future. And so, Father, we thank you for the rest, for the restoration, for the rejuvenation and the refreshing. And we just want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We sing, we dance, we express these things with noise and with all the things that come to express the joy that overflows out of our hearts, just hoping that it will put a smile on your face as you look down on your children who love you so. So, Father, we thank you and ask now that you would be with us, leading and guiding all things, so all things would be done to your glory and to your honor. As we come before you now in authority, the authority of Yeshua, our Messiah, and together we say, Amen, Amen, Amen. All right, you may be seated. All right, excellent job again by the praise team. And I really like hearing Brianna's songs done live. So that was really great. You know, it's good to hear, you know, instead of doing it with a soundtrack or whatever, but to do it with live, that was great. Excellent solo there, Mr. Manning. Appreciate that. Good job. And I don't even have words for what, you know, Marty did on that bass solo before here now, so. That was great. I loved it. Okay, so this is the time now that we get to go before the throne with our praises and our concerns. Okay, it's a tradition here at MTY and Beth Shalom that this is the time when we would take up the praises and the prayer needs. If you're here locally, looks like we got, excuse me, I got Nate with the microphone. Okay, so Nate's going to walk around. Also, if you're on live stream, it looks like I've got Rob Wyan on the live stream being assisted there by Kurt Meyer down in Georgia. So they've got that kind of covered. And so if you've got a live stream, just go ahead and post that, and they will write that down. Please understand that, number one, there's a lot of you here in the room as well as a lot of you on live stream. So we would like you to keep the backstories to a minimum, as well as we would really appreciate it if you could be patient with us if we lump some things together, especially with the live stream. For those of you watching a live stream, I keep looking that way because that's where the desk is. So it makes it, I feel like connected more to you guys when I look that way than this way. Sorry about that. Okay, because that's where Rob is sitting with the computer. Okay, so, and he'll read some of your requests, especially the urgent ones, over the microphone. So who's going to start us off over here? Okay, Tricia?
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
I just want to continue lifting up Bailey's father, my coworker at work. They had to go in to get the cancer out of his brain twice. They were able to get it out, but in the process, he did die. They revived him. He cracked a rib. He's got pneumonia in his lungs. So we just want to continue praying for him. It's a very long and hard struggle. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I just want to thank Yahweh for bringing me here. And it was a struggle. And I'm going to tell you, anybody who's wanting to move here, prepare to do a battle, because I really did do battle. And I think that Hasatan doesn't want us to come because he knows we're going to get blessed and we're going to grow. And I'm just really grateful to be here. And I want to just say hi to all my friends on live stream. I'm here.
Okay, thank you. So Candace is here. Yay! All right. Deirdre?
I am just so grateful to Yahweh for leadership.
Appreciate that.
And I am just grateful for a husband who is willing to go to said leadership. And thank you, lovely Miss Candace, for forewarning me, because with a little bit of help from Rabbi, we are going to move up to Cleveland.
Yay! Yes, I had a real lovely session with you and your husband, and they're looking to see if it might be workable to get up here. So instead of driving almost an hour from Georgia, whatever it is, but to be able to come and live right up here and have more access to everybody. Excellent. Who's next? Okay.
I'd just like everybody to keep Michaela, my 2-year-old, in your prayers, please. Right before Passover, she's going to have eye surgery to correct an eye cross, possibly on both eyes, but at the very least on one.
Okay.
So,
I'm sorry, I forgot your first name.
Candace.
Candace. Okay, we got another Candace. Okay, wonderful. Okay, we certainly could pray for the eye surgery and for the children. Appreciate that. Okay, Jonathan, get up. Raise your hand. I saw your hand was up. This is Jonathan Thompson, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. I just want to give our praise for safe travels and blessing and getting me here safely all the way from Vallejo, California. I'm here with my mom and she's in Huntsville, and it's just good to finally be here. I've been watching all of you on the live stream on my phone, and I might be staring at y'all a little bit throughout the day, but because it's just...
It's a little bigger here than on your phone.
But I'm just thankful and grateful to Abba for getting me here safely and meeting up with Rob and Tamara Wyatt in Huntsville off of the Torah study, which worked out because we were able to ride up here with them. So
Awesome. Fantastic. And it's always especially exciting when somebody who's been a part of the live stream, and in Jonathan's case, the men's Marco Polo group, then to finally get to meet you guys in person. And that's great. And when you get to come to Passover here in a week or two, you'll get to see Adrian, because he will be there as well, and some of the other guys that you see, on the live stream that don't live here, that you won't have met yet, but they're going to be coming in for Passover, and it's going to be very exciting. So that's great. Okay, Sarah Beth.
Thank you. I just want to add to Stephanie's prayer last week that YMTY would get everything we need to do prepared, especially my part of it that I need to do while balancing a lot of overtime I just signed up for. Woohoo!
Amen. And you finally got some sleep last night. That was good, because she's those shifts that she works where she does, sometimes it's just better to just not sleep and wait till you get back in the right cycle, and so that could be a little rough, but we're glad that worked out. Hey, did everybody enjoy Erev Shabbat last night? And Rosh Chodesh? By the way, Rosh Chodesh Sameach! Rosh Chodesh Sameach! All right, because today, for those of you that weren't on last night, today is the first of Aviv, also known as Nissan, formerly known as Datsun. Okay, more of you got it today than last night. Okay, so. All right. You got to be old enough to remember those B210s and the 280Zs and those kind of fun things. Yes. All right. Where's the mic? Anybody wanted the mic? Okay, coming around. Lots of hands on this side of the room. We'll bring it to Dawn. See, I see how you are. Bring it to your wife first. All those hands you walk past. You're a smart guy.
He loves
wisdom.
Me. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Just a couple of prayer requests. One, my grandmother who has leukemia, she fell at the doctor's office and broke her nose in 3 places and her cheekbone and some other things, and she should have stayed at the hospital, but she refused and insisted on going home. My aunt stayed with her, and then I think it was this morning she fell again off the commode, so if we could just keep my grandma Tate in prayer, that would be great. Also, we went into the doctor's and had Arwen's leg x-rayed, and he didn't feel comfortable going with a step-down cast just yet, so he put a whole cast right back on up to above his thigh. So please continue to keep Arwen in prayer for his leg to be healed. He goes back on the 25th during Pesach, so unfortunately we won't be there, but we'll be with you in spirit and keeping the home fires burning here for everybody.
Okay, absolutely. And by the way, because of Arwen, we're thinking of putting speed limit signs in the gym.
Yes.
Because he can get around on that wheelchair. Okay.
Also, Zach Bauer's wife had surgery this week. If we could pray for a quick recovery for her.
Okay. All right, Daweed?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that a lot of people around here saw me walking around like an invalid last Shabbat, and obviously I'm dancing now, so everything's okay. We found out what the nutritional issue was that would help at least mask it until it's completely healed. So just wanted to give Abba praise for the wisdom he gives us. So.
Amen. And it's good to see you out there dancing again. And by the way, during that song, that part where you guys all shriek and shout, please make sure you're not standing right behind me when that... Okay. Cleared my ears right out. Well, okay, if the light's on, it means it's off. So just push the button, and there you go.
I should know that by now. Okay. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Introduce yourself.
I'm Beth Langton, my daughter Shannon. We're here from Montana by way of South Dakota, long story, but we're just praising Abba. We're here finally, and it's really surreal but awesome, and so praise Yahweh.
So you guys have moved here?
Yes, we moved here.
All right, family. So you're family number 1 for April. Awesome. Okay, Tamara.
I have so many things to be thankful for. One of those, Rabbi, I just want to thank you and Julie for your talk with Rob and I last week. The reason I'm doing this is because I want to encourage other people, other marriages, other relationships to counsel, because he gave me so much wisdom and I didn't like it. I even told him, I don't like this. But
Dawn's agreeing with you. She doesn't like it either when it happens.
And I said it more than once. But I went home and I processed it, and Yahweh just moved on my heart and just said, okay, take your white knuckles off the steering wheel and let Rob drive. So praise Yah, Rob's driving now. And also, Olivia took this SAT as a 12-year-old last month. We got her scores back, and they were fabulous. 76th percentile in the overall national SAT, so we're praising Yah. The one thing, some people may not know this, but when Olivia was born, she had seizures for the first 4.5 minutes of her life. They thought she had brain damage. Long story short, she wasn't supposed to be a bright, brilliant person. She wasn't even supposed to be alive. So we're just thankful that Yahweh just moved on that. And also, if you guys could keep me in prayer, my stomach is still not tolerating the new medicines, and I would be grateful for your prayers.
Okay, so just to be clear again, hold on that. If after not liking it and saying it 3 or 4 times, but now you think it was good and that it was appreciated, is that where?
Oh, I'm grateful.
Okay,
I do. I'm grateful because one of the things...
Because going, well, if she didn't like it, why do I want to do that?
Well, I didn't realize how much in control I want to be, and how I just overtake him. And he probably just would rather just let me deal with, than to deal with me, or, it end up in an argument. He'd probably just let me handle it. And then, with your encouragement and you telling me instead of him telling me, worked out really well.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure, because I really would, look, it's not that I need a lot more people calling me for counsel. I'm very happy to do it, but there's so many of you that I could possibly give some counsel to that would help you if you would give me a chance. But all of you are trying to picture what my counseling might be like from just what you see up here. And it's not the same. Not that I'm inconsistent, but I'm getting up here and speaking to everyone, having to give something that should hopefully get to everyone is different than tailoring something specifically to you and your situation. Okay? All right? And then that's where you're going to get the individualized attention and things adjusted to what you need and at the tone that hopefully will work for you. And by the way, some of you may need to hear it harder than what I do up here. Some people know who I'm talking about. But okay, they can ask you. All right, David's like, you can come and ask me. But some people, believe me, you will get it a whole lot gentler than when you get up here. It's all what you need and what you can handle. And I pray Abba give me the wisdom at that moment. Okay? But it's all coming completely out of the love and hope that I will be able to help you. All right? And like Tamara said something very important. It's always a truth that you can receive from a third person different than you can receive from that spouse. So if you need to hear something, even though the spouse might be sitting going, I've been saying that for years. But you're not going to receive it the same because you're already emotionally, triggered by certain things, and you have an emotional predisposition to not receive the same. Okay? This is an experience that all teachers have. Another teacher can come in, tell you the same thing I've been saying to you, and all of a sudden you guys think, that was the best thing. I'm going to change my life now. And I'm thinking, I said that for 5 years. But you needed to hear it from somebody else too sometimes. Okay? So that's also the thing with counseling. So I really appreciate that you mentioned that part of it. That hearing it from me, not because it's me, but because it's just a different person. A person also that you can respect, an authority that you can say, okay, I'm going to go try this out and see what's going on because I trust that person. So it's a trust thing, okay? All right, I appreciate that very much. All right, Nate, go ahead.
Just to encourage other folks, I've said it before, every time that I think that I know what he's going to say in counsel, usually surprises me because don't take what you see at the pulpit. He's not inconsistent with the message. His delivery is a little different.
Right.
So I just wanted to encourage you with that. My wife mentioned that even though sometimes it's hard to receive the counsel, the fruit of being obedient to that, because we're listening, we're trusting him, but also trusting our Elohim that he's working through him to bring that counsel. And that also what's very respectable in my eyes for our rabbi is that he completely understands the consequences and the responsibility of being in that position as a person between us and our Elohim. So because of that, I know our Elohim works with him in that respect, if that makes any sense.
Amen. I appreciate that. Hey, look, and I don't think this is out of school, but when I first met Dawn and Nate, and we had our first session, and it got a little strong there at times. The next morning, I walked past Dawn. She put her arm out to stop me as I walked past her in the lunch or wherever we were, breakfast or lunch, and she looked at me and she said, "I still don't like you, but I'm listening." Okay? Well, that's a good first place to be. And then hopefully we get to the point where I like you and I'm listening. But the thing was, she didn't allow I didn't like how that felt, what I went through just last night and everything else, but I'm listening. I'm realizing that there may be something to it. And so that was when I smiled and said, okay, now we're getting somewhere. We can build on that. Because, of course, she did it very tongue-in-cheek and she had a smile on her face. Because basically what you're saying was, I know that you said some things that I realize now were right and I don't like it. But I'm listening. See, that's the way you have to be open to that. Okay, you have to be open to that. Then progress can be made. Okay, and we're going to talk about that a little bit today because it's in the teaching verses we're going to go to, the idea of dealing with reproof and correction. And some of you thinking, Rabbi, you just look for verses to get an excuse to talk about that. No, it's everywhere. It's not my fault. You know why it's everywhere? Because we have this problem as people. We do not like correction or reproof. Scripture even says it. It says nobody likes correction when they're getting it. I mean, the verse actually says that. We know that that's true. It says nobody, but it can bring the peaceable fruit. It can bring good fruit if you'll accept it, right? But that means that some of you don't want to come to counsel because you know somewhere deep down that some of your stuff you're going to have to own. Remember we talked about that last night? Okay, I said you're going to have to own your stuff. But if you could just own it, you can fix it. If you can't own it, you can't fix it. Okay, if you own it, it's yours. Now you can fix it. Where'd you bring the mic? Rabbi Tom? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
I have a whole bunch of praise reports, but I'll be brief and just give one. The fellow who vandalized and burglarized Ethan and Ariel's mobile home has been arrested, and he's in jail. And some of his family members contacted the boys asking them if they'd consider dropping charges. And Ethan said, no, he's got to pay the consequences. And we've heard that word consequences in the afterburn last week, last night, and now Nate mentioned it again, consequences. So maybe this guy will learn a lesson when he finally has to pay the consequence of being behind the bars for a long time.
Amen. Amen. All right. You know, justice doesn't always come quickly, but you can count on it coming eventually. Okay? Because what does it say in the Bible? It says, Yah is not mocked. You will reap what you sow. Problem is that people don't reap it fast enough for our liking. But you should be happy you don't reap it as fast as you should, because otherwise you'd be in a lot of trouble. See, we always don't like it when others don't reap it quick enough, but we always are happy when we don't. Everybody will reap it at some point. He gets to decide how fast and what's going on. Okay, where's the mic? Are there more hands on this side? Nope. Okay, bring it to the live stream desk where Manny has joined the crew over there.
Can I say one thing real quick, Rabbi?
Sure.
I just wanted to hold Steve Waffle in prayer, lift him up, and then also give praise for Daniel Hatt and you for being there for him.
Appreciate
Thank you,
that.
guys.
Well, then let me talk about that real quick. So I had the opportunity, and, these are some people just don't understand what ministry is all about because they think it's, standing up in front of people, making some sort of a teaching video, and then everybody thinking you're great. And that's all of ministry. They don't know about the parts when you have to go and help somebody through the biggest challenge that they can, which is the loss of a loved one. They don't know about the parts when they have to get involved in a huge fight that could end up in a divorce between a husband and wife. They don't know what it's like to get involved with a parent and a child having some sort of major issue and the responsibilities that are there. There's some really hard things you have to do in this position. And one of the hardest was something I got to do, and it was a privilege to be able to do it, but it's very hard as I got to go and give comfort to someone who had just lost their spouse. And so there really is not a whole lot harder thing to deal with. And so it was a blessing to have people working with us that I could, say, hey, go. If you can go and go be with them. So Daniel Hackett was able to go and spend a couple of days, and he was able to bring, sometimes you don't realize that what you go through, and it may be as awful as it was, can be a blessing to somebody else. Because Daniel had lost his wife not that long ago, gave him the experience to help this gentleman through his loss and the process of dealing with that suddenness as well. And so whatever you're going through, if you can get through it, you can now do for others what you learned to do through your experience and help them understand that you can get through it and life does go on and that kind of thing. Because you already know the path. You've already made it through. And so we were able to go there, and Steve is doing as good as one can be expected to do under the circumstances. I mean, nobody does great under these circumstances, but he's doing as well as he can. Abba has been very gracious to give him a lot of work, which keeps him busy, which busyness is a good thing in dealing with these kind of things. Alone time by yourself with nothing to do but think is not the best thing for people when they go through these kind of things. And so he has the men's Marco Polo also to keep him busy, which is great. So people are talking to him, and he's talking to them, and he's not by himself. And he's going to be able to be, I think today he's over there at the Allens with Jeremy and Aubrey. So he's got time, to be with more of the M2I brothers and sisters. And we were able to have a funeral for Gwen on Wednesday. And, excuse me. And you know what? I left my water bottles back there, I think, on the counter. The bigger one is fine. Thank you. It's basically frozen. Okay. All right, and it was very, family members came. Now, interestingly enough, with that family, there was some contention, as there actually almost always is when it comes to things like funerals. And so they decided to do two separate ones. And we got to go to the first one where Steve and his family and friends got to come. And I got to meet his brothers who were there, and his father was there. And some of Gwen's family did come, which was very nice. And it was good to see. It brought some healing, okay? So they were there. One of her sisters and one of her daughters came with the son-in-law, so this was good. And there was some healing there. And I also was able to get some really great witnessing to, this is a very Catholic funeral home with the guys working there, and yet they came to me, and after I gave my message, said that was one of the, best, I'm not saying this for a pat on the back, but he was listening, and he thought it was one of the best messages given at a funeral, all denominations aside, which shows he was listening to a message that was not pushing an agenda of one of those denominations, but reaching to people very much like I did at when I did that for when Shonda passed. So that was not to me getting the pat on the back, but to say he was listening and others are listening and they're paying attention when people are in there giving a message. And maybe a little seed was planted about some things. And next time he hears about Messianics, he may have a nice positive outlook about what we do because of the experience that we had. And that's one of the things we want to be aware of. When people interact with us, that may be their first experience with anybody who claims to be a Torah observant Israelite. And what impression are you leaving them with in that experience? But continue to pray for Steve, as this is a journey and it's going to be a tough one for a little while. And so, we will give encouragement. Those of you that have relationships with him, please continue to stay in touch with him and give him encouragement as he goes through the process. I really appreciate that. Okay, live stream, go ahead.
Okay, first is from Steve Waffle. He just wants to personally thank those who have supported me in prayer and in person in Gwen's passing.
Okay.
From Anna Tripp, I have two prayer requests. First, for my son, hit his head hard at school yesterday, feeling really sore today. And second, for Daryl, he's having a bad celiac Crohn's attack since yesterday. From Madison, for Torah, please lift up my sister and her husband in prayer. They have just had a miscarriage and are brokenhearted. Lisa Galagos, prayer for healing for my husband who fell and hurt his back and is in a great deal of pain. For Rena K, asking for prayers for speedy healing of my broken finger. Mara Smith, praises to Yah for a good week even though suffering pain. Please pray for healing and a pain relief. Cheryl T, prayer for my brother Pete who just had a hip replacement, a friend who was diagnosed with cancer and an unspoken. Two from Leb Mashiach, please continue to pray for the flood victims in Nebraska. Many are still without homes. And also, please pray for guidance and discernment for Travis Owens as he has some extremely important job decisions to make that will be heavily life impacting for their family.
Okay, and the Leb Mashiach is the congregation affiliated with MTY in the Omaha area.
Sharon
Travis, and Travis, you are encouraged to call me, and maybe I can help with some of those, thought processes in your decisions. Go ahead.
From Sharon Masters, thank all of you. I've been praying for my son Chuck. Situation is the hands of his or our Father Yahweh and His Son, the great physician. That brings much needed peace to our situation. From Arthur and Linda, prayer for Linda's brother Archie, chest pains and has a spot on one of his lungs, awaiting further tests and results. For Doris and Olson, prayer request, ask for a prayer to ease my arthritic pain during this current flare-up. Praise and thanksgiving to Yah for all He has given to me. Mae Johnson, prayers for my sister Carol. She is having surgery to remove her uterus, which has a mass and right ovary due to fibroid tumors. From MTOI Lakeview, prayer request for Calendar family as they near their due date and having to move their house. Molly and Carrie, unspoken. April Dykes, prayer for my sister that she will find relief of her uncontrolled chronic pain. From Aurora, huge praise from Finland. We asked last week for a prayer to get a scholarship for Aurora. Father gave it to her. Praise Father. It will help our finances a lot. Shalom to all from all of us. Antoinette, prayers for my mom who's still recovering from her surgery, a close family friend who is suffering from bone cancer, and many unspoken. This one just has a hand on our name. Please pray for my upcoming surgery, that all goes well, the quick, easy healings afterwards. And also, please continue to pray for my walk and Abba to strengthen. From Kendall Phillips, prayer please for multiple family members with medical issues. Rebecca Simpson, please pray for a speedy recovery for my mother, Eloise. She is having her cornea transplant surgery on the 9th. From Don, Nate was offered a day's position, but required a Sabbath day, and he refused. Please pray they will give him the day's job without having to work Shabbat. From Aaron Sullivan, I slipped down our steps this morning and injured my knee. It's painful, but I can still walk, praise, with some difficulty. Prayers that whatever I did to it heals quickly. From Josie Espinoza, prayer request for my granddaughter Alexa. She's in the hospital. White blood cell count was way too high. And my son Ray, taking him to emergency. Looks like a bad flu. We'll find out. Then that's a lot for the urgents. We have many unspokens, a lot for marriages, and as well as prayer for travel mercies for upcoming Pesach and preparing for Pesach.
Amen. Amen. We can certainly deal with all that. Also, an encouragement that we are planning a whole series of courses and classes and things like that, starting sometime here after Passover, and that would include some things for marriage, okay, for couples, so that we can deal with a lot of these things that we're all suffering from because, you know, in theory, getting married sounds so simple and living together forever and all that kind of stuff, but not as simple when you have to deal with each other every day with all of our stuff. And, you know, at some point, we have to, you know, really get pushed to that edge of realizing, you know, what did I get myself into and do I really want, you know, it's hard. And it's the same thing, by the way, that Abba has with us. It's that relationship is a type and shadow of our whole thing. We struggle with our stuff with him just like we struggle in marriage with a spouse. But he's not physically here in the same way a spouse is. It's just so it's more visceral. It's more, you know, right there in our face. But it's like really, if we could figure out the marriage thing, we could figure out the relationship in him. It's all about figuring out relationships. How can we figure them out? And we struggle. And if anybody tells you that they don't, they're lying or they're not married. One of the two. Okay, either they're not married or they're lying because it's not easy. Because you got two human beings with all of our mess who are spending all their time in the same space. Not easy. Okay, but we can get there, and it's a great journey, and hopefully we understand that the more challenging, the more growth you can get. If you weren't married, growth is a lot slower and a lot harder. Marriage brings a lot faster growth because you're forced to deal with your stuff. Anybody know some single people who've been single like their whole lives, they'll never get married, and they're just not dealing with any of their stuff? Because you interact with them and you know that they're not marriageable at this point. Because they're so entrenched in their stuff, nobody could live with them. But with marriage, you're forced to deal with your stuff. And that's good. It's not fun, but it's good, right? But it's a good thing. Okay. I want to add just a couple of things here. There are some people who did not necessarily give me permission to mention them during. Yes, did you want to?
If I might comment on what you just said about marriage.
Go ahead.
I'm not going to give you the backstory on my wife and I, but before we came to MTOI, we stayed in being married because we felt guilty. We did because we understood that divorce was a no-no. You do not ever. And then we listened to your teaching, and for those of you that are wondering what I'm talking about, like, what does that mean about listen to the teaching, divorce, remarriage, and putting away? Now we stay married because we love each other, and it's a we know it's a choice, and we stay together because we love each other. It's not like a guilt thing anymore. It's we love each other, we want to stick this out and work it through, and a lot of that has to do with being able to have a counselor that we can go to when things struggle, but just because we love each other, now we stay together. It's not a guilt thing anymore.
That's awesome. You just scored a lot of points. I saw the smile on her face. See, I know you scored points. No, but that's the point, is that a lot of us maybe have chosen to stay together for the children. Okay, the children watching you fight all the time are not appreciating you staying together for the children. Okay, so that's not necessarily fixing anything. But also for guilt, for this, for that, for stubbornness, because I made a commitment and I'm stubborn and you want to figure out how you can stay together, like Nate said, because I want to. Because I'm in love with this person and I want to spend my life with them. As flawed as I am and as flawed as they are, we'll figure this out some way. Okay? And that's the right way to approach it. Appreciate that, Nate. Okay, so there's some people that I want us to pray about who are dealing with some family members with serious cancer issues, just like we heard some of the ones in the prayer requests. Since they did not give me permission to name them, they didn't tell me I couldn't, but I'm not going to go ahead and assume I can name who it is. But we do have people I've been talking to this week and in other weeks where they're dealing with things like stage 4 cancer in bones, in lungs, in brains, and all kinds of other issues that people are running into. And so we need to keep them in prayer. A lot of them are dealing with the inevitableness of the fact that it's incurable and is going to take its path, and then how do we deal with those things? especially when it's when it's the wife who's not done anything to provide for herself because the husband's done it for all those years. Now he's passing. Now what? And so that's a rough transition. And that's where we need community for. Okay? That's where community comes in. All right? The answer is not wife become all independent and not need your man so that if that happens, you're okay. No, that's not the solution. It's community that's the solution. Okay? I'm not saying women cannot become independent. I'm saying, but I don't want you to all of a sudden think, I better go take care of myself in case something happens to him. No, because then you will start usurping and everything else if you have the attitude of that. If you have the abilities and you have your own stuff to do, fine, go ahead and do it. That's no problem with that. But also recognize that when you get to that place, if you end up with not knowing what to now do with yourself, that's where a family, a community comes into play. And praise Yah, we're building one. Okay? Maybe not physically yet, although so many of you have moved here, and we certainly could. All right? But certainly from a virtual sense, we have a family and a community that people can lean on. And that's a real blessing that we provide to people. Okay? Okay, now, because it's hard enough to lose your loved one, but then how about the panic of recognizing now that I'm on my own, now what am I going to do? That can be really tough. So also we want to pray for all those that have called during the week about all the different issues they're having. I do appreciate that. Opportunity to try to serve in that capacity, and I tell people we'll continue to pray for them. We've also had those that are preparing for Passover, have gone through circumcision, and we're very proud and appreciative of the choice that they've made. And there's been several around the world that are part of MTY that have made that decision. It happens every year right before Passover to go ahead and get it done. And, and sometimes it doesn't go as smoothly as we would like. All right? And so that doesn't mean anything, long-term or permanent, but sometimes there are issues and things like that. So let's keep everybody in prayer that is doing this, because like I said, people contact me from literally 4 or 5 different countries as they go ahead and go through this process. Last year, we had a whole group in one place that all the men in that one group just went and got it done together. Okay? They all went to the, and each one went one at a time and got it done. So that whole congregation's men all got it done right before Passover. We have more like that happening this year in several of the places that we have ministries, including the States, okay, including here. So let's keep all of them in prayer as they recover and they heal, and to be encouraged about the choices that they've made. All right? And the commitments that is showing our Father in their lives, okay? Because it demonstrates just incredibly high commitment. Much more so than what I had to do. Because all I had to do was be 8 days old. There wasn't anything for me to do. I didn't know what was going on. My parents, being Jewish, naturally took me at 8 days and had me circumcised. But when you're 18 or 20 or 30 or 40 or 60, we've had people in their 60s and 70s go and get it done. You are making a decision, knowing exactly what you're doing, and that should be considered highly praiseworthy. Okay? Now, I'm not saying it's not praiseworthy when you have a child and you do it for them. That's praiseworthy to you. You're making a commitment to raise them in covenant. But when an adult male can make that choice himself, that's a big deal. And I'm very proud of them all. Okay? Very proud of them all. Okay. I think that's going to do it for what I have, praise and prayers. I'm just looking here. Yep. So let's go ahead and pray. Avinu Malkeinu, our Father, our King, Father, we come before you, and we are just so blessed to have access to the throne of the universe, to be able to come to you and share our praises and our concerns. We recognize you as sovereign, as king, as having full authority of all that exists, and that there is nothing that exists that's outside of your ability and your desire to have it be in your will, to have your will be where it needs to be. But yet you allow us so much latitude and space to grow and to make mistakes and then to fix those mistakes, and we appreciate that you are allowing us to learn and to grow. We also appreciate that while we're doing it, you're always there ready to catch us when we fall, to hold our hand if we need it, and encourage us as we go through the journey if we will just listen for it. So, Father, we recognize you as having all authority. So that being said, we also know then that there's no place for us to bring our praises or our concerns that would make any sense but to bring them to you, because you are the only one that truly could have any authority over these things. So, Father, we thank you for all the good things in our lives, all the miracles, small and great, all of those moments that you show us that you're aware of our circumstances, that you care, and that you're there. And so, Father, we thank you. We appreciate every single blessing. And so, Father, let us never forget the blessings first before we worry about all the concerns, and stop appreciating and recognizing that in our trials and tribulations, we are still spoiled and blessed. So, Father, we thank you. We ask now that you would also be attentive to our needs and our prayers. We know that you were aware of them before we spoke them, but also that you desire us to ask. And that, Father, we also accept that what your answer might not be the one we were thinking, but yet we recognize that you are way smarter than we are. You know the end from the beginning, and we trust that your answer will always be the right answer, and ask that you would help us to accept that. So, Father, we thank you. We praise you. We give you all glory and all honor as we come to you under the authority of Yeshua our Messiah. Amen. 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 All right, if you'll all rise now for the liturgy. Dawid will come up and lead us in the liturgy. Okay, so can we cue Kaddish now? We'll do that first. Okay, we did have someone that was asking if we would recite Kaddish for the loss of a parent and a spouse. And so we're going to stand with Jonathan and his mother as we go through Kaddish, and Dawid will lead us in Kaddish. Now, for those of you that are not experienced with the mourner's Kaddish, you might notice the first time I noticed it when I was old enough as a Jewish young man, to notice that it didn't seem like it said a whole lot in it about mourning the loss of somebody or anything to do with that kind of thing. Well, it's encouragement to those that are still around. Okay, that's the point of the Kaddish, is to encourage those that are here having to now live without the one who is not here. And so that's why this is the worded the way it is, and it's meant to be an encouragement. Okay. I break my phone, and you can lead us in Kaddish. Yes, sir. I will get my headset on so we can do the You know what? Let me do it with the. Okay, so there's a few places in the Kaddish where we will be saying Amen together, and I will be kind of leading that from this side of it. Go ahead.
Yitgedal v'yitgedash Shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Be'alma divrach yiruteh v'yamlich malchuteh v'yatzmach purkaneh v'karev meshicheh בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בגלה בגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם עולמי עלמיה יתברך, יתברך וישתבח, ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה, ויתהלל, שמי קודשה בריחו. לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן. יהי שלום רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו, ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו, Amen. Glorified and sanctified be God's great name throughout the world which he has created, according to his will.
Amen.
Amen. May he establish his kingdom in your lifetime and during your days, and within the life of the entire house of Israel, speedily and soon, and say, Amen. May his great name be blessed forever and to all eternity. Blessed and praised, glorified and exalted, extolled and honored, adored and lauded be the name of the Holy One. Blessed be he. Beyond all the blessings and hymns, praises and consolations that are ever spoken in the world, and say, Amen. May there be abundant peace from heaven and life for us and for all Israel, and say, Amen. He who makes peace in his high heavens, may he make peace for us and for all Israel. And again say, Amen.
Amen. So, Father, we ask that you would comfort those that are mourning the loss of a loved one, that you would give them the peace, as we just said, that you would provide for all Israel and for all the world, that you would give them the peace that goes beyond all understanding, that you would lift them close to you and hold them close, wiping away every tear, giving them encouragement, that there is a hope of a resurrection. There's a time that they will be reunited, and that, Father, that you have a plan, and your plan will be fulfilled. And so, Father, we thank you for these people and for their strength that they need from you. We thank you for providing all that they need in this time, mercy and compassion, as you comfort them in their loss. In Yeshua's mighty name, Amen. Amen. Okay, remain standing for the liturgy.
Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu et Yahweh HaMvorach. Baruch Yahweh HaMvorach le'olam va'ed. Bless Yahweh, who is blessed. Blessed be Yahweh, who is blessed forever and ever. Amen. Ma tovu Ohalecha Yaakov Mishkenotecha Yisrael. How goodly are thy tents, O Jacob, thy tabernacles, Yisrael. V'ani berov chazdecha abo betecha eshtachave elhecha kodshecha be'yiratecha. And in thy great compassion I will come into your house. There I will bow, there I will fear thy holiness, O Yah, O Yah. Shema. Shema Yisrael, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Hear, O Yisrael, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh is one. Blessed be his name, whose glorious kingdom is forever. Ve'ahavta. And you shall love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart, and with all your being, and with all your might. And these words which I am commanding you today shall be in your heart, and you shall impress them upon your children, and shall speak of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up, and shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes, and you shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Amen. Mi chamocha be'elim Yahweh, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot Ose fele, ose fele. Who is like you, Yahweh, among the gods? Who is like you, mighty in holiness? You are awesome in praise, doing wonders, Yahweh, doing wonders, Yahweh. Veshamru, Veshamru, B'nei Yisrael, et HaShabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, בני ישראל אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי 6 ימים עשה יהוה, עשה יהוה את השמיים והארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. Together, and the children of Israel shall keep the Shabbat to make the Shabbat throughout their generations an eternal covenant between me and the children of Israel. It is a sign forever that in 6 days Yahweh made the heavens and the earth, and on the 7th day he rested and was refreshed.
Amen. Amen. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get the chuppah out for the children. Okay, give that to Wayne Brown. All right, so children, as soon as we get the chuppah set up, we'll get you out there. All right, children, come on under. Okay, watch out, make room for Arwen to come in. Okay, there's lots of room in the back over here towards Manny and Frederick, so just kind of move in here. Okay, just got a few more to squeeze in. That's right. All right. If you'll all extend your hearts and hands to the children, Wayne will lead us in the blessing over the children.
Abba, Father, we come before you. We want to recognize who you are, that you are the provider of all things, the creator of all things. You give life to everything. Father, we're just so grateful that you have given us all these children. How blessed are we that you have given us this time to raise them in the way they should go. Father, we just place all these children today under this chuppah as a reminder of your blessing and then your covering as they walk in your mitzvahs. And Father, we just ask that you raise them up and that you bless them and prosper them in everything they do. Father, we not only come before you today just for the children here, but the children that are online, that are watching us. May you bless them and prosper them. Father, we just come before you by authority given to your Son, Yeshua HaMashiach. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Okay, children, you are dismissed to your classrooms. For those of you that are watching online, the children are being dismissed to classes where they will be learning this week's Torah portion at their level. Okay, this is Tazriah. And so we have several classes that are going on here during the teaching time. The rest of you may be seated. It looks like we're getting okay. The rest of you may be seated. All right, Hamaseh v'hatruma, the tithes and the offerings. The purpose of tithing, as we understand it, is to put Yahweh first always in our lives. Also for us to appreciate his abundant blessings. Now, we don't take up a formal offering here at the congregation. We do have a box in the back of the room over here for those of you that are new, as well as we do have donation buttons on our website, on YouTube, and everywhere else that you can imagine. And if you're so moved, you certainly could access that way. The purpose of tithing, as we understood it, is to put Yahweh first. And that's the whole thing, is taking everything we do, whether it's our time, our money, all those things, putting him first in all things. And this is just a reminder of those things. Blessed are you, Yahweh your Elohim, King of the universe, who commanded and made promises to us concerning the tithe and the offerings. May you open up the windows of heaven and pour out a blessing that cannot be contained as we walk in these mitzvot, in these commandments. Amen. Amen. All right. Let's get to the announcements. Continuing in the theme here of supporting the ministry, we do have 2 Amazon programs that we're a part of. Okay, I'm not promoting Amazon on Shabbat. I don't want you to do any shopping today. But you may shop tomorrow or some other time, and sometimes you might choose to use Amazon. And if you do, there's 2 ways you can do it and support us without costing you any more money or spending any additional funds, but you can help us out. And that is either you can go to the mtoi.org website, and when you get there, there'll be a link where it says Shop with Amazon. And if you take that link to Amazon, they will know that we sent you like a referral, and they will then give us a small percentage referral fee for sending you there. Okay, you also can do it in another way, which is in some ways more simple, which is through the Amazon Smile program, which is smile.amazon.com. The first time you go, it's going to ask you to select a ministry or nonprofit that you would like to support with your purchases. You type in the 4 letters MTOI. It'll ask you if it's the one in Appleton, Tennessee. You say yes, because we haven't officially switched us yet to Cleveland. Okay, so don't be confused by it saying Appleton. And then whenever you shop on Amazon, you would just go to smile.amazon.com instead of regular Amazon.com. You can still sign in with your Prime account or whatever else you normally do, and it won't affect anything else that you do. Okay, but they will still give us then a donation based on your purchases to support what we're doing. This adds up to just a few $100s a month, but you know what? When I say just, that just a few hundred pays for things like Adobe Connect, which runs us about $350 a month. And so we do use that software for the Tuesday night Torah studies. Helps pay for the Zoom software we use for the leadership meetings. Okay, so these are very helpful to us, and we appreciate it very much, taking that extra effort. And again, some of you have asked, I want to help more. Well, if you use Amazon, you can help more by doing it this way. That's one way you can help more, okay? Let's see. Upcoming announcements. So I want to welcome our guests. We do have a lot of guests here today. Some are guests visiting. Some are guests who are now moving here, so they're really not guests. They're just here for a little while for us to get to know them until we embrace them fully as family. So we still count you as guests and give you extra special treatment for the first couple weeks. Because we are children of Abraham, and Abraham was known for hospitality, okay? And so it's very important that we do a good job with our hospitality. Now, so all of you are encouraged to get to know the people. If you're a guest, don't be overwhelmed if people come to try to meet you. Okay, we're trying to be hospitable. All right, after services, we have our fellowship meal. We call it an oneg. Oneg in Hebrew means delight. And so we'll have that after services. You're all welcome to stay to participate in that. We always have enough food, even for guests who came and didn't bring food. Do not feel guilty you showed up and didn't bring food. Please stay and eat with us. And I promise you it'll be enough for you because we're going to have you go first. So you won't have to worry about there being enough food. All right? And I will go last, so if there's not enough food, then that's okay. All right? Unless, of course, Rob, did you bring the bagels and lox? Okay, I'll be putting that aside first. Only because he brings it for me. Okay, and the rest of you guys get the benefit from that. But anyway, there will be enough food. Enough wise guy for a Sabbath. Okay, upcoming calendar stuff. By the way, if you want to find your way to Rabbi's heart, just bring bagels and lox and you'll be in good shape, all right? But you need also the tomato and the red onion, just so you know. I could do without the capers, but I'm trying to get away from those. I don't need more. I don't need more frozen yodels. Okay. Upcoming calendar stuff. So this Tuesday, we have our Torah study as always, Tuesday night Torah study. Okay, so we're continuing through the journey in the book of, what are we in? Leviticus. Okay, and this week and next week, okay, we have all the fun, gross, disgusting stuff to look at. But it's reality. Life had things that were going on that needed to be understood. How do we handle these things? And so we're dealing with Tazria and Metzorah. Tazria this week, Metzorah next week. Okay, so Tuesday we'll be doing Metzorah. Tuesday, in case you are following along, we do on Tuesday night the Torah portion that would be for that following Shabbat. Okay, so the one that's for this, today, this one we did on Tuesday a couple of days ago, okay? All right. Then on April the 14th, a week from tomorrow, we have our leadership meetings. Okay, so that includes a general session at 8 o'clock Eastern Time that's open to all of you. So we have the South African leadership meeting at 10 a.m. Eastern Time here, then the full leadership council at noon. By the way, that includes the South Africans, but because they've got some unique things happening where they are, I want to make sure to give them some special attention, dealing with some of the really challenging things that South Africa is going through right now. And then at 8 o'clock Eastern Time is what we call it a general session. It's open to everyone. Okay, we don't do these every month anymore, but we try to get them in maybe at least quarterly. And this one, I like to do them especially either right before or right after a feast to maybe talk about things like getting ready for that feast. Okay, general session is a chance to get to know each other and meet each other, kind of like Jonathan was able to know that there were from Tuesday Night Torah Study, there were people in Huntsville. Okay, so one of the ways these Torah studies and these general sessions bless us is that it's almost like a way to, it's like a family reunion. You find out you have family in various places that you never know when you might need to stop by or call upon them. And that's really a blessing, and it worked out for them this week. Okay, so the general session. So also we do that. As part of that, we have what I refer to as town hall meeting. It's an opportunity where we will express to those that are in the meeting the things that we're planning to do in the future with MTOI if we have something that came out of the leadership meetings, because after all, we had a leadership meeting only a few hours earlier. And the way the leadership meetings are going, the leadership meetings almost end now and go right into the general session. We have so many leadership people in there now, they're running about 4 hours. So we're running about 3-4 hours. So by the way, you should really be excited about the commitment level of all the people who 90% of them or more are volunteers, basically. They're not full-time, they're not getting paid to do the ministry work, and they're leading groups all over this country and other countries. They're joined together to serve the body in a better way as far as what MTY's whole idea is, can we work together and be more effective in serving the body? And these people then take a time out of their Sunday afternoon to come and be in a meeting that nowadays is running at least 3, almost 4 hours. And the only thing we're talking about is how can we be of more use and value in helping you in your transformation from what you are to what He is. Okay? We're not trying to figure out what products we can sell you. We're not trying to figure out how we can fleece you. I don't know what other ministries are doing. We're only trying to figure out how can we give you and provide you with more of the things that might be useful in your transformation, in your journey. Okay? And these guys will stay in there for 3-4 hours. Now you say, well, why does it take so long? Well, because we allow each person to have their time on the microphone explaining and sharing what's going on in their area and bringing up issues that they need to bring up. Okay? So we all can have accountability with each other. And when you have, 20-something leaders in a meeting and each one gets a mic for a few minutes, well, just multiply that out. It doesn't take long for it to take 3-4 hours. Okay? Because think about it. If each one takes just 10 minutes, that's over 200 minutes. That's already 3 hours. Okay? So just add that up. And then eventually I get the mic and they're all in trouble. So, because then it goes a whole lot longer. All right? So when you balance that all out. Now, so that's coming up here on Sunday, April the 14th. And then, of course, just a few days after that, we have Passover and unleavened bread. Yay! Okay, for Pesach, we'll be arriving on April the 19th with Passover meal being that night. Okay, so that's Friday night, April 19th. Saturday, the 20th, will be the first holy day, and the following Friday will be the last holy day, but the last holy day, because it's on a Friday, goes right into Shabbat. We will be staying through the weekend and leaving on the 28th. Okay? So there will be no services here, on the 21st, or on the 20th or the 27th. Okay, we will be doing both of those Sabbaths in North Carolina. If you are here and you can't make it there, then you could always watch the live stream, and that's just the way it'll have to be, unfortunately. We'd love for everybody to be able to come from everywhere, but we know that that's not necessarily always possible. Okay, so just remember, we will not be here on the 20th or 27th, or for the 2 holy days. If you have not yet registered, please do so as soon as you can. We do actually have about 32 rooms left, which is great. We have a good amount of space, which means that very soon, probably this week, we'll be giving rooms away, if we have not yet, to people that are going to stay for partial stays. So if you've been on a waiting list for a partial stay, it looks like we do have some rooms for you, and we're going to start giving those away. So I'm looking at Stacia, so we could start probably doing that this week, all right? Because we have quite a few. We have 32 rooms, so we're good. Now, but we do have 246 people registered by phone. Okay, not everybody has sent in their paperwork yet, so we do need people to send in your paperwork, please. 175 adults and small children, 71 YMTOI. That's the 5 through 19-year-olds. 71 in our classes. That's just going to be great. I know the Rebbitzon's thinking, that's so many kids. But it's wonderful. Look, there were times where the YMTOI was like just my kids, okay? And maybe 2 or 3 others. Now, so just my kids and the shepherd's kids. Okay, so that made it. But back then, there was less of them. Okay. No, actually, by the time it was ours and theirs, there was all of them there. So that is just way more information than we need to go into at this moment. Okay. But the point is, there's 71 children. So for those of you that are thinking, my children are not interacting with other children where we live, well, bring them to one of these events, and they can be with another 70 children that are going to be in their age range. Because at this point, it looked like we had about 13 to 15 children in each age bracket, and about almost 30 in the one middle bracket with the Katan B, which is the 9 to 12s. All right? So figure about 13 to 15, 5 to 8-year-olds, and 13 to 15, 13 to 15-year-olds, and 16 to 19-year-olds, and then the 9 to 12s is about 25 to 30. So we've got some good-sized classes, and they're going to be learning about the 6 things Yahweh hates, and 7 are an abomination. Proverbs 6, 16 through 18, right? 19, okay? Okay, so you're going to be learning some really powerful things, or at least your children will. And by the way, as parents, go through the materials. You will learn some stuff, okay? Especially if you're new, go through the materials. As a matter of fact, some of you will go through it and come to me and say, hey, Rabbi, can I miss one of your classes? I want to do that. Because after all, I'm only going to be teaching like 3 times during it. They're going to be in classes every day. Okay, it's an everyday program. By the way, some of you parents that are bringing children, you will be shocked and amazed when your children insist that they hurry up to wake up and eat breakfast so they can get to class. I've had parents come up to me and say, what are you doing in those classes? I go, why? My kids never get up and rush and say, I have to get to class. But they love it because they love being with each other and they love learning and engaging with the Word on their level. And they're going to be doing activities and playing games and things that are teach the lessons of that section that they're working on. They're going to do crafts. They're going to be answering questions and making projects, and it's going to be wonderful stuff. It's a very comprehensive program. At some point, we're going to try to put these things together in a way that we can make it available, that people can purchase it and use it in their homeschooling or use it as part of what they're doing at where they're located. At this point, we are not able to do that yet, but we are trying to figure out how we can make it into like a box set you could buy, and then boom, it has all the materials, everything's ready to do, all the projects, all the crafts, all the instructions, and maybe even a video showing how it's done. Okay? All right. So that should cover it for the announcements. Okay, so again, if you have not made arrangements yet to come, please contact us as soon as possible. Call the new phone number here, 423-250-3020. Ask for Stacia Hayes. She'll probably answer the phone anyway. Okay, and then you can make arrangements for your housing so we can block out a room for you. Okay? So I think that's going to cover it. Okay, that's on there. All right. Did I miss anything? No. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and get ready now for the teaching. If you got a phone, you might want to make sure again to check and see that it is actually off so we don't interrupt anything with that. Does the new microphone sound okay to everybody? It's the first time we're trying it out. It's not as big and black and clunky as the other one, so. Okay, I think this is ready here. Okay, we ready on the cameras and everything? We're all good over there? All right. Where are we starting today? That is correct. But yes and no. It's correct, but it's not. How's that? Someone said Jeremiah. I said, you're right. But I want to just start in Proverbs real quickly just to reset for 2 seconds, and then we'll go to Jeremiah. Okay. Everybody ready? All right. Are you covenanted? Part 33. That was underwhelming. Okay. Are you covenanted? Part 33. That's okay. That was good. All right, so here we are in 33 parts. Hopefully we're not getting jaded and all that because this is important stuff. And we're going to be dealing with some really important issues that were brought up in Proverbs chapter 5 as we're talking about the connection between wisdom, knowledge, and understanding with our being in covenant, with our keeping of the covenant. And we've been looking at this metaphorical woman with honey dripping from her lips, tempting us with words smoother than oil, and yet it brings bitterness and wormwood and a two-edged sword. And last part, we were dealing with the idea that her ways of doing things, the way she walks, if we follow in her footsteps, it's going to lead to death. If we follow her ways, her feet lead on to death. Her feet go down to death, her steps lay hold of the grave, verse 5. Okay, so we're still dealing with the sort of feet thing. And then we stopped in Jeremiah 11. Now bear in mind, leading into this in Proverbs 5:1, again, we are being, in the first two verses, it says, listen to my wisdom, incline your ear to my understanding, so as to watch over discretion, and your lips guard knowledge. That's the framework of we're now contrasting that with this woman that's going to tempt us to go in a different direction. And we're talking about the feet going in a wrong direction here. And in chapter 11 of Jeremiah, we read the first 15 verses, and we were talking quite a bit about these things. In verse 8, it talks about, but they did not obey or incline their ear. Isn't that what we just were told to do in Proverbs 5? To incline our ear, to obey and incline our ear. He said, but everyone walked in the stubbornness of his evil heart, so I brought on them all the words of this covenant, which I commanded them to do, and they did not do. So they chose to walk in a different way. So we're talking about the way the feet were going. Where are your feet going? Okay? Very, very important that we understand that there's a very narrow, simple path that's so easy to deviate from, but that path leads to the success you're looking for, the kingdom. But all other paths may look like they could go in the right direction and in the right place, but they don't. And that's where we have to be careful of the lips dripping honey, and sounds good and it's sweet and it wants to take you in what direction you think you want to go. So we stopped in verse 15 and we go into verse 16 now. Now bear in mind that what's happening here in verse 8 leading forward is we're saying, look, because you chose the wrong path, what did it say in chapter 5 of Proverbs, verse 5? It said, as you go into 5 and 6, it will lead to the grave. It's going to bring cursing. It's going to bring bitterness and wormwood. So here he says to us, there's a covenant that you made. Oh, I don't know. Do you remember the covenant, Exodus 19, right? If you do what I say, I will take you as my people. But there's more to it. And Deuteronomy 28 is probably the best place to look and see what he says it actually looks like. If you obey, you get all these blessings. And if you do not obey, you get all these cursings. And here he's saying, you did not obey, so guess what? Now you're going to get all those cursings, just like I promised. You can trust in either side of these things to always come true as he says. You can trust the blessings to come, but you can also trust the cursings to come. Our witness of the cursings coming should just as much strengthen our belief and faith as witnessing the blessings coming. In other words, we trust that what he says, he means, and when he says it will come true, it does. It comes to pass. So it's vital that we understand that. So then we get to verse 16. Well, actually, let's go in verse 15, kind of lead into it. It says, why should my beloved be in my house? She has done wickedness with many, and does the set-apart flesh remove your evil from you? Then you rejoice? So he's saying, look, why should you, my beloved, be in my house? Anybody know this phrase, as long as you live in my house, you're going to live by my rules? You've probably said that as a parent, or you remember it as a kid, but you've heard it or said it or both. As long as you're in my house. And he's saying, look, he's using the word beloved. He says, look, I love you. You are my beloved. But why should you, my beloved, be in my house if you're just going to do whatever you want? If you're not going to do according to my rules? You know, we have the verse where Yeshua says, in my Father's house, there are many rooms, but also there's rules. And to be not thrown out of that house, you got to be submissive to the rules. He says, and does the set-apart flesh remove your evil from you? Then you rejoice. In other words, you sit there going, oh, but I'm covenanted, I'm circumcised, and I'm bloodline Israel, and blah, blah, blah. In this case, he's talking to Judah. I'm Judah, and I'm this. No, that flesh has nothing to do with it. Choice has everything to do with it. What do you choose to do? Look, we talk about salvation as providing an opportunity. With salvation, everything you do now matters. If salvation wasn't available, nothing you did would matter. Well, guess what? He's saying here, just because you covenanted, like making an altar call. By the way, I did a little research. You know that altar call thing is only since the 1800s? That's how well established and rooted it is since Yeshua. It took 1,800 years for someone to come up with it. But he's saying here, your physical outward appearances don't score any points. You have to do what I've asked you to do. So don't just sit there going, but I'm a Jew, but I'm an Israelite, but I'm a this, but I'm a that. Labels are not going to get you anywhere. He's not going to sit there going, okay, who's got the right label? Okay, you're in. He said, look, you have done wickedness with many. And you think, oh, but I have set apart flesh. In other words, I don't live with them necessarily. I've separated myself from these people, etc. Yeah, but you do what they do. He says, then you're going to rejoice? He says, Yahweh has named you green olive tree, fair and goodly fruit. Fair and of goodly fruit. With noise of a great sound, he has set it on fire, and its branches shall be broken. Okay, so Israel is referred to as this goodly green olive tree, this good green olive tree. But he says, look, I've set you on fire, and its branches shall be broken. And Yahweh of hosts, who planted you, has spoken evil against you for the evil of the house of Israel and of the house of Yehudah, which they have done against themselves, to provoke me by burning incense to Baal. And Yahweh made it known to me, and I know it. Then you showed me their deeds. Oh, this is the problem. So we have this green olive tree. We got this problem with the green olive tree and breaking of branches. Let's go to John 15. And I just thought of another place to go. So let me see if I want to go there first. Hold on. Yeah, let's go to Romans 11 first. We're going to have to write something new in my notes here. We're going to go to Romans 11 first. Okay? In Romans 11, let's see. Let's start in all right. I'm not really sure where I want to start here. Let's see. Let's go to, I guess we could start in verse 1. I'm going to have to deal with a bunch of stuff that I didn't really intend to, but we will. Okay. I say then, has Elohim rejected his people? Let it not be. Okay, when he's saying has rejected his people, who's he referring to? Those covenanted initially, those born of Israel. Okay, in this case, he's talking to those of Judah because the northern tribes have already been dispersed, and so he's talking to those that identify as Jewish because that would have been Benjamin, Judah, and some of Levi, and the few that had been from the other tribes that had basically assimilated into the southern kingdom of Judah. Now, has Elohim rejected his people? Let it not be. So for all replacement theologists, Romans 11:1 is in your Bible. Okay? Because all those replacement theologists say, well, the Jews blew it, and so he's rejected them. It's now on us, the Gentiles. Well, Paul's going to explain that that is absolutely not true right here in Romans chapter 11. But remember, we're talking about branches in a tree. We're going to get to that around verse 17 or so. All right? 16, 17. But let's go through this. Elohim has not rejected his people whom he knew beforehand. Or do you not know what the scripture says of Eliyahu? How he pleads with Elohim against Israel, saying, Yahweh, they have killed your prophets and overthrown your altars, and I am alone left, and they seek my life. But what does the answer of Elohim say to him? I have left for myself 7,000 men who have not bowed the knee to Baal. See, Eliyahu didn't know who was who. It just looked terrible to him. It looked like he was all by himself. He said, so therefore, also, at this present time, a remnant, according to the choice of favor, divine favor, has come to be. Okay? Now, understand, we're talking about this. This is real favor. All right? This is not what people have taught grace to be. This is unmerited favor, where he has made sure that a people existed. Now, they've merited it, saying these are people that have not bowed a knee. So in some ways, they've merited it. But he has made sure that a remnant has existed. Remember, the key here is I alone am by myself. And he says, no, there's 7,000 who have not bowed a knee. So also, therefore, at this time, there are those who have earned favor through doing what they need to do. Even though you don't see them so visibly. Because the visible Israelites were a mess. Yeshua pointed it out all the time. Their leadership was a mess. The people following the leadership were a mess. He says, so therefore also at this present time, a remnant according to the choice of favor has become. In other words, they have chosen to do what was meriting favor in the eyes of Yah and not bent a knee to Baal. And if by favor, it is no longer of effort or toil. In other words, so he's saying here, I'm going to help you define. Verse 6 is a mess. I want us to make sure we understand it. I've done this in other teachings, but I want to make sure. Now, remember, a remnant still exists because he chose for them to not get killed off. We're not talking about their behavior earning or not earning here. He, by his mercy, has kept alive a remnant that could have been killed off at any point. And he said, just like with the Baal thing, you remember with Eliyahu, they were trying to kill all of those that were followers of Yah. And Elijah was like, what's going on here? I'm the only one left. He says, no, there's 7,000. He says, and I've kept them alive. He says, and if by mercy and favor, grace, not the way people normally understand it, if by that favor, it is no longer of an effort or toil. Otherwise, the favor is no longer favor. In other words, here we're talking about that it has nothing to do with merit. Abba has chosen there to be a remnant. Your efforts and your toil is not what's bringing that around. And if it is of works, it is no longer favor. By works, the word there is not the idea of Torah observance. It's effort and toil. Let's be careful that we're not misunderstanding the word in English, where we've been taught works means doing the law. No, this word actually just means here, translated, effort. It wasn't because of anybody's effort that in his mercy he chose to keep a remnant alive. That's what he's saying here. He says, otherwise, the effort is no longer, now again, be careful here with the word works. Otherwise, what their effort is no longer effort. In other words, if the, Paul, you know what, I wish, Paul, you could be more clear. All right. Okay, if by favor it is no longer of, if it's by favor that he did this, then it's no longer of effort or toil. Otherwise, the favor is no longer going to be considered favor. If it is of effort and toil, it is no longer favor. Otherwise, the effort is no longer the effort. What is he talking about? Who knows? Okay, now, what then? What then? Israel has not obtained what it seeks, but the chosen did obtain it, and the rest were hardened. So he's saying, look, this is not about grace versus law and all this other stuff. He's saying, look, there are some that chose to go the path of the covenant. There are those that chose to deviate from the covenant. So he's saying here, look, there were some who obtained because they chose, and others who did not obtain because they were hardened. They chose not to. He said, what then? Israel has not obtained what it seeks. What? But the chosen obtained it. The ones who chose, the ones who had favor, the one that he kept alive, they obtained it. They stayed in covenant. As it has been written, Yahweh has given them a spirit of deep sleep, eyes not to see and ears not to hear unto this day. You cannot do this on your own effort, is what he's trying to say. He has to give you eyes and give you ears, give you the heart to receive so that you can choose. We've said this to a lot of the teachings. It's his favor, his choice to open up your eyes and ears when he chooses. Okay? It's his choice. It's not your choice. You don't get to force that issue. It's going to be what it's going to be when it's going to be, okay? Now, that being said, he goes, he has given them a spirit of deep sleep. David also says, let their table become for a snare and for a trap and for a stumbling block and a recompense to them. In other words, let them reap what they sowed. They broke covenant. They went and served the Baals. They did exactly what says in Jeremiah, where each one was choosing to walk in the stubbornness of their own evil hearts. Let them have consequences. You said so in your covenant that they would have consequences. Let the consequences be used as a wake-up call. Follow this. Let their eyes be darkened not to see and bow down their backs always. I say then, have they stumbled that they should fall? Let it not be. But by their fall. Okay, so first of all, he's saying, remember, Paul knows the Tanakh, the Old Testament, better than anybody that I can think of. all right? He knows it's certainly better than everybody he's talking to, certainly better than all the Gentiles that might be reading this. Okay, he knows the Tanakh, and he's trying to say, look, I know the prophecies about the restoration, that Israel and Judah will mess this up, but they'll be restored. I know Ezekiel 37, he's saying. I know what's going on with the 2 sticks. I know about the dry bones. I know about all these things that have been prophesied in Hosea and in other places. Yeah, I also know that it says that they're going to suffer until that time. And so he's trying to point that out and how that fits into the current events he was going through here in the book of Romans. And he says, I say then, have they stumbled that they should fall? Let it not be, but by their fall, deliverance has come to the Gentiles to provoke them to jealousy. So he's saying because Israel, because Judah has chosen badly. Remember, Yahweh has said things always like, well, if you don't want to do it, I'll raise rocks to do it. If you don't want to do it, somebody else will do it. All right, we have in the book of Esther, if you don't do it, somebody else will end up doing it. Yahweh's going to have it done. But what will happen is when those that knew they were chosen, knew they were supposed to do it, all of a sudden somebody else is getting the opportunity. Any of you ever have this happen with your children? You have a child supposed to do something. They don't do it, so now you move on to the other child. Now all of a sudden the first child wants to do it. Because they're like, whoa, 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 that's my thing. But you didn't do it. We're moving on over here. It provokes them to jealousy. You see how that can play out? And so he says, look, let it not be. But by their stumbling or their falling, it's not like they blew it and they'll never get it back. The Gentiles were brought deliverance. In other words, their eyes were open and ears were open. Not they were saved. Let's not think of the status thing. They were delivered out of that blinded, delusional place. He says he'd given them strong delusion. They had inherited lies of their fathers. Their eyes had never been opened. He says they were delivered out of that ignorance so that they could then start walking this out and provoke Judah to jealousy. And if their fall is riches for the world and their failure riches for the Gentiles, how much more their completeness? In other words, how much more does this end up eventually being a blessing to them when they figure it out? To recognize how they were used in a powerful way. For I speak to you, the Gentiles. Now he's making sure that we know who the audience is. I speak to you, you nations, you Gentiles, you non-born covenanted people. You were not born covenanted. You're not generationally, bloodline covenanted. He says, inasmuch as I am emissary to the Gentiles, I esteem my service, and if somehow I might provoke to jealousy those who are of my flesh and save some of them, for if their casting away is the restoration to favor the world, what is their acceptance but life from the dead? Because remember, that's all part of the full line of prophecy about Israel. That they would be the people, they would blow it, and then they would again be the people. They were called Lo Ami and Lo Ruchama, Hosea. Right? Lo Ami, not my people. Lo Ruchama, no mercy. But in the same place that was said, they would be called children of the living Elohim. Okay, so it's Hosea chapter 1, I believe. So recognize, Paul's understanding all of this. Now he says, for if their casting away is going to bring restoration to favor with Elohim of the whole world, then what is their acceptance but life from the dead? Now if the first fruit is set apart, who is the first fruit? The original covenanted people, Israel. If their first fruit is set apart, then the lump is also. And if the root is set apart, so are the branches. And if some of the branches were broken off, what did we read in Jeremiah? He said, I'm going to set a fire and break off the branches. If some of the branches were broken off, being a wild, there it is, olive tree. Same thing that we read in Jeremiah. Having been grafted in among them, and came to share the root and fatness of the olive tree. So he said, and if some of the branches are broken off, and you, Gentiles, being a wild olive tree. I have to reread it because I read it wrong. Okay, and if some of the branches, the original branches, Israel and Judah, were broken off, and then you, Gentiles, being a wild olive tree, be grafted in among them, and come to share the root and fatness of the original olive tree, Do not boast against the branches. And if you boast, remember, you do not bear the root, but the root bears you. In other words, we don't start reading the Old Testament through the New. The Old is the root. It starts in Genesis, not in Matthew or John or some other place, or Hebrews or Romans or Galatians or wherever you may have started in your church going. The root. By the way, there is a oxymoron, misnomer, some other nonsense out there called the Hebrew roots of the Christian faith. There's no such thing. Christianity's roots come out of paganism. It starts off with a perverting of the Hebrew faith. Because they don't want to have anything to do with the roots when they talk about that. They still want to be Christian. They still want to say the law was done away with, we don't have to do it, blah, blah, blah. We can eat what we want, do what we want, meet on Sunday, Christmas, Easter, all that other stuff. The roots of the Christian faith are syncretism of paganism. Okay? It's not like the Christian faith is where we're supposed to be, and this is how it got to be this great thing. No. There was a great thing. It was a covenant at Mount Sinai. It got twisted and perverted and became the Christian faith. Get mad at me all you want, people throwing rocks at me now online or whatever. Okay. He's saying here, look, you do not bear the root, but the root bears you. And you shall say then that the branches were broken off, that I might be grafted in. That's good. That's good. Did you understand that branches were broken off so that there was room to graft you in? However, he says, by unbelief they were broken off, and you stand by belief. But do not be arrogant, but fear. And there's a huge arrogance being taught all over the place. We're special, we're saved, we're blah, 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 whatever. He says, for if Elohim did not spare the natural branches, he might not spare you either. Take that for a warning. Remember, think you stand, beware what lets you think you stand unless you fall, right? For if Elohim did not spare the natural branches, he might not spare you either. See then the kindness and sharpness of Elohim. On those who fell, they received sharpness. But toward you, kindness. If you continue in his kindness, otherwise you shall be receiving the sharpness and cut off as well. And they also, if they do not continue in unbelief, shall be grafted back in. For Elohim is able to graft them in again. And he says that in the two sticks in Ezekiel 37 and in all kinds of prophecies in Isaiah, Jeremiah, and everywhere else. Hosea, Micah, they all say the same thing. He says, for I do not wish you to be ignorant. Hold on, I skipped one. Okay, verse 24. For if you were cut out of the olive tree, which is wild by nature, and grafted contrary to nature into a good olive tree, the good olive tree of Jeremiah, we just read in Jeremiah 11, he said, how much more shall these who are the natural branches be grafted into their own olive tree? Stop being arrogant. What's happening in Jeremiah is prophetically going into what Paul is talking about here. They made mistakes. They were cut off. The tree was set on fire, but it then eventually opened up the doors as the plan. Look, in the very beginning, who got the first promises? Avraham. And when Avram, actually, before he was even had his name changed, Avram was told he would be the father of many Gentiles, many goyim in the Hebrew. And the plan is playing out right here. Paul's explaining it. Because Father knew that Israel would struggle. They would go after their own stubborn hearts. They would seek after the Baals. They wouldn't listen to the covenant, and that would open up the door to bring in other nations. And then they would be provoked to jealousy. They'd figure it out. They'd come back in, and now everybody has the opportunity because of this. They didn't all need to be at Sinai or related to somebody who was. That's a great plan. That's an incredible plan. He said, for if you were cut out of the olive tree, which is wild by nature, and grafted contrary to nature into the good olive tree, how much more shall those
These here, who he's talking about the Jews, who are natural, be grafted into their own olive tree. He said, I do not wish you to be ignorant of this secret, brothers, lest you should be wise in your own estimation, that hardening in part has come over Israel until the completeness of the Gentiles has come in. He's trying to say, look, Israel is only in this temporary state of being heart-hardened. He's got to allow that, because if Israel jumps out there, is all in it again, they may have the same problem trying to say, this is ours, you can't have it. Because I'll tell you right now, Christianity and Judah agree on only one thing: the Torah is not for you. They do. And so if they were grafted back in before the Gentiles had their opportunity to come all fully in, they would go back to, well, the Torah is not for you. It's for everybody. It was never meant to be just for them. It's for all. This is his great plan. That's why when the kingdoms were split, okay, you have Solomon and the kingdoms being split going into his children. Why was it split? Because it was going to play out this way. What does Abba say? What does Yahweh say in that moment to Rehoboam? He says, oh, no, don't go after Jeroboam and try to bring the people back and reunite the kingdoms. This split is of me. Wow. In other words, it makes my plan move forward. It meets the needs of the plan. I knew this would happen. It's going to lead to what I want to play out eventually. It's not going to be fun for everybody going along the whole process, but this will allow for what I need to happen to happen. And when I say what I need, it's not like he caused all this stuff. He already knew we would mess up, knew we'd reject the covenant, knew we'd be weak, knew we'd be stubborn in our flesh, knew we needed to be receiving of consequences, discipline, chastisement, so that we could learn our lessons through consequences. And he saw how this would play out all the way through. The end from the beginning. And when this happened, he said, this will lead to what I want. This will lead to the result I want. Let's let this play out. Leave this alone. Continuing. He says, verse 25 again, he says, I don't want you to be ignorant of this secret. This is something that most people did not understand. Most people did not understand in Paul's day, nor today, the relationship between covenant and covenanted born people and not covenanted born people. In other words, the relationship between a Jew and a Gentile. At this point, we're only dealing with Jew and Gentile because Israel is basically, for all intents and purposes, scattered and lost. And at this time, a whole bunch of you Gentiles aren't even really Gentiles. You wouldn't even know it. You got Israel blood in you, but because it's sifted like seed and grain through a sieve and all that other stuff, you've just been mixed so much, who knows? And it doesn't matter, by the way. You don't need to go swab and find out if you're related, bloodline to anything. Listen to the teaching I did called Discovering Your Identity, and understand, absolutely no doubt, it's choice that matters, not bloodline. Doesn't matter your sex, your race, any of those things. It's choice. Because in the kingdom, there won't be any of that stuff. There'll only be choice. It won't matter what your physical body was like. You won't have one. None of those other things will matter. What will matter is choice. Are you going to choose to be a member of the kingdom? In other words, a citizen of the kingdom in complete submission to the authority of the king of the kingdom? Choices. It's all about choices. Why did I give you that one teaching? Making decisions is the reason you exist. It's all about choices. It's not about bloodline and all those things. Now, and Paul says this over and over and over, but he wants to make sure that the Gentiles now don't come in the other side of it, let the pendulum swing the other way, and now they get all haughty, which is one of those problems from Proverbs 6. Okay, the 6 things Yahweh hates, and have haughty eyes, and start looking at the Jews like, you guys are losers. We're so great now. He doesn't want you guys. He wants us. He's rejected you. We're his special children now. And Paul's saying, don't go there. Don't do that. Has Elohim rejected his people, verse 1? Let it not be. And we have verse after verse after verse, if you would read it in the Old Testament, saying that absolutely he will bring them back. And they will be restored. There is no doubt. Continuing, so he says here, I don't want you to be ignorant of this secret, lest you should be wise in your own eyes, in your own estimation. You need to know that hardening in part, not in completeness. Remember when he had Eliyahu saying, I'm by myself. He says, no, hardening hasn't been complete here. There's still a remnant, 7,000 haven't bent their knee. He says, in part has happened and come over to Israel. Okay, hardening in part has come over Israel until the completeness of the Gentiles has come in. And so all Israel shall be, not are, but shall be delivered or saved. As it has been written, the deliverer shall come out of Zion, and he shall turn away wickedness from Yaakov, and this is my covenant with them when I take away their sins. He's not talking about Gentiles here. Truly, as regards the good news, they are enemies for your sake, but concerning the choice, they are beloved for the sake of the fathers. Understand what's going on here. For the gifts and the calling of Elohim are not to be repented of, for as you also at one time disobeyed Elohim, but now have obtained compassion through their disobedience, so also they have now disobeyed, that through compassion shown you, they also may obtain compassion also. For Elohim has shut them all up to disobedience in order to have compassion on all. Are we following this? Because if you came out of Christianity, a system that basically said, they blew it, they need to come and convert to what we are. They blew it. We're special now. The arrogance in Christianity even goes to the place of everybody before the death, burial, and resurrection really didn't have a shot. Because after all, it was only after that point that everybody after that is special. Anybody ever heard that? Okay? They're not saved. All of them are just because the Spirit hadn't been poured out. The Spirit was poured out in Genesis chapter 1. What are you talking about? What, it was poured out in chapter 1 and then taken back? It's been here all the time. John chapter 1 explains that. Some chose to act differently than others. All through the whole time, before we even get to verse 14 where Yeshua shows up. I need to just read that to you real quickly here. In John 1 it says, let's see. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with Elohim, and the Word was Elohim, and He was in the beginning with Elohim. And all came to be through Him, and without Him not even one came to be that came to be. Now I'm forcing myself to write John 1 in here. Okay? In Him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. There was a man sent from Elohim, whose name was Yochanan. This one came for a witness, to bear witness of the light, that all might believe through him. He was not that light, but that he might bear witness of that light. What light? He was the true light, which enlightens every man coming into the world. He there is referring to Yeshua, the Word, not to John. Now, He was in the world, and the world came to be through Him, and the world did not have a relationship with Him, a knowing of Him. He came to His own, and His own did not receive Him. He's not talking about Jews here, because He doesn't actually show up in the flesh till 2 more verses. Remember, we started in the beginning, and we're going through a timeline that will eventually lead to Him coming in the flesh. So He came to His own. What is His own? Everybody. He created everybody. He came to His own, because He created them all. It says, none came to be, except they came to be through Him. All that came to be through Him, and without Him, not even one came to be that came to be. Verse 3. So He came to His own, verse 11, His own didn't receive Him. But as many as received Him, to them He gave the authority to become children of Elohim, to those believing in His authority, who were born not of blood, nor of desire of the flesh, nor of desire of man, but of Elohim. There's your Ruach playing through right there. He says, these ones who did receive Him, they did it how? Because of their bloodline? Nope. It's not because of who they were born, not of their bloodline, nor of desire, not because they wanted it so bad. Some of you remember, and you actually, you know what? Some of you have friends right now and family right now who they want it so bad, but they're caught in a lie in Christianity. But they want it so bad. Some of you wanted it so bad, but until he was ready to open your eyes, until he was ready to open your eyes, didn't matter how much you wanted it. I know one of you tells a story how bad you wanted it, and finally when you get so frustrated, you say, well, if you're not going to give it to me, then I'm done with you. And then he finally gave what needed to be done. But you wanted it so bad. He's saying, look, it's not because of your effort. This is where it's not about works. Salvation, being aware of it. The idea and understanding that salvation exists and how it plays out and how it works in terms of the kingdom and eternal life is an opening eyes, opening ears thing that he has to give you. Your bloodline doesn't automatically give it to you. Your effort doesn't automatically give it to you. He says, so it's nor by blood, nor the desire of flesh, nor the desire of man, but of Elohim, his choice. And that's the key thing here. But as he opened eyes, the previous verse says, but many as received him, right? They were given authority, but before that he said, most of them didn't receive him. Not everybody who has their eyes open receives. And so he's making that clear here. And then verse 14 says, and the Word became flesh and pitched his tent among us, and we saw his esteem. The esteem is the only brought forth of the Father, complete in favor and truth. So we have that flow, and we go back to Romans, and we can see how that's flowing out here. Elohim had shut them up all for disobedience. And he says, oh, we're back in verse 30. Let's go back to verse 30. For as you also at one time disobeyed Elohim, but now have obtained compassion through their disobedience, so also these have now disobeyed, that through the compassion shown you, they also might obtain compassion, for Elohim has shut them up to disobedience in order to have compassion on all. That was the same thing that happened with Jeroboam and Rehoboam. He had compassion on all by allowing them to split, so that it would end up eventually being to where it came. And then with the two kingdoms, he allowed the Assyrians to come and take away the northern tribes. Then he allowed the Babylonians to come and take the southern tribes. But then he allowed some to come back to keep the remnant alive. Remnant's a small group. Notice he took the remnant out of Judah and not out of the northern kingdom. Why did he take it out of Judah? Because we have a promise that between Judah's legs will always be a lawgiver. We have those promises in Genesis. So he used Judah for that. Doesn't mean Judah didn't mess up a lot. They had to be taken away by Babylon. They had to go through other sufferings and persecutions, etc. But there was always a remnant. He says, the depth of riches and wisdom and knowledge of Elohim. Wow, that sounds like the same stuff we're looking at in Proverbs. Wisdom and knowledge of Elohim. How unsearchable his judgments and untraceable his ways. In other words, you could never have thought this through back then, that was the whole big plan. While they were going through it, there's no way they could see how this was going to play out. There's no way. How unsearchable, untraceable. His judgments are incredible. For who has known the mind of Yahweh? Or who has become his counselor? Or who first gave to him, and it shall be given back to him? Because of him and through him, and to him are all, to whom be esteemed forever. Amen. This is the problem. Now, by the way, this is what was going on in Jeremiah. Let me just make sure I put this right here. So we did this we did the entire chapter, so 36. Okay? So we're back in Jeremiah when he was talking about the goodly tree and how they messed up. And because they messed up, fire would be set to that tree and branches would be cut off. Verse 16 of Jeremiah 11. Yahweh has named you green olive tree, fair and of goodly fruit. I messed it up every time I've read that. With the noise of a great sound, he has set it on fire, and its branches shall be broken. And Yahweh of hosts, who planted you, has spoken evil against you for the evil of the house of Israel and of the house of Yehudah, which they have done against themselves to provoke me by burning incense to Baal. Now bear in mind, What is the problem with this whole Baal thing? They were taking stuff of the Gentiles, stuff in the way they worship their Baals, their masters, their gods, okay? And what did they do? They claimed it to be the way to worship the Elohim. Is that not what you see all through Christianity? Isn't that how we ended up with Christmas? Ended up with Easter? I drove home last night past a huge, I'm thinking it's a Baptist church, okay? With a giant sign outside telling everybody to come for the Easter egg hunt. Woo! Because that has a whole lot to do with what? Where in your Bible is there an egg-laying rabbit? Chocolate eggs on top of it. Okay, where do you see that? Where do you see Easter in your Bible? For all you King James only people. Because you got the word Easter in the book of Acts, and it comes from the Hebrew, which says Pesach. It doesn't say Easter, it says Pesach, the Pascha, the Paschal Lamb. Your book isn't perfect. And so what do you have? You have the incorporation of outside things into the truth. This is called syncretism. Syncretism. Not synchronizing, syncretism, taking something from outside and bringing it in sync with something that was inside and it doesn't belong. This is what they were doing here, the Baals. He says, and you're doing these things to provoke me. Now, none of us are thinking we want to provoke him, but he's told us what provokes him. So why do we do it? I mean, you may not mind provoking your brother or your sister. You may even have fun with it. I promise you it's not a good idea to provoke your Creator. Okay, there's no fun in that. Trust me. All right, where are we now? I think we can squeeze some more in here. You want some more? Let's go back to Proverbs 5. That was an overwhelming yes. No, I'm kidding. There was a few very excited yeses. Let's go back to Proverbs 5. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, John 15. Right? We had more to do. We skipped John 15. Shame on all of you for not telling me to go there. Okay. John 15. Because that was where I was going before I redirected to Romans 11. Okay. By the way, this is what it looks like when you study the Word and you allow the Ruach to lead. I didn't have Romans 11 or John 1 in my notes planned to go. But when I was reading about the olive tree, the Ruach said, well, the olive tree is discussed in Romans 11. Now, how do I can't go there unless I've already studied Romans 11. In other words, the Ruach stirs and brings to remembrance what is already there. Put enough in there, you give the Ruach something to work with. Okay? John 15. We'll start in verse 1. I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. Every branch in me that bears no fruit he takes away, and every branch that bears fruit he prunes, so that it bears more fruit. Now, bear in mind that back in 2001 or 2, I was in Hilton Head, South Carolina, sitting at a congregant's place of business. He had a sign business, make big signs in front of buildings and stuff. And the senior pastor of the Baptist church on the island there came and said, hey, Bob, how you doing? And great. He said, oh, I'm doing great. Here, let me introduce you to my rabbi. This is Rabbi Steve. Now, he's probably thinking I was a Jewish rabbi. He wasn't thinking Messianic or that kind of thing. And we started talking, and I was full of foolishness and vim and vigor, so I thought I'd have fun with the senior pastor of the Baptist church. You guys really have no idea how good you have it with me now, okay? Okay. You go back 15, 18 years, it was not as good as that. Okay. I was really pretty rough. And so we're sitting there talking, and I took out this book, the same exact book in my hands. You can see how worn out it is now. It was pretty new back then. And I read John, I said to him, so let me understand this, Mr. Senior Baptist Pastor. So once saved is always saved, right? He goes, absolutely. I said, okay, so in John 15, when he says, every branch in me, would you say that's a saved person? Absolutely. That bears no fruit, he takes away. Oh, oops, what happened there? Then he goes, you are already clean because of the word which I spoke to you. He says, stay in me and I stay in you, as the branch is unable to bear fruit of itself unless it stays in the vine, so neither you unless you stay in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. He who stays in me and I in him bears much fruit, because without me you are unable to do nothing. But listen now, if anyone doesn't stay in me, that once saved, always saved person, he is thrown away as a branch and dries up, and they gather them and throw them into the fire and they're burned. What in the world happened there, Mr. Senior Pastor? Please explain. And he looked like I was handing him a bomb. He's like, and then he said, well, I don't know that translation. It's like it reads different in any translation. So I said to Bob, Bob, you got a King James here somewhere? He goes, yeah, pulls one off the shelf. And I say, well, here, explain it to me from this one. And he takes it, puts it down, he goes, well, you're just spiritually blind. I said, so what does that mean? If I wasn't spiritually blind, it would just like be obvious to me or something? Of course, then I had to go take a meeting, and my wife was sitting there, and he said that we're all going to hell, and she was ready to kind of jump up and tell him something, but okay. But that's the thing, is that it's all right here clear. This is the branches thing that you read about in Jeremiah 11. We read about it in Romans 11. Oh, no, Romans 11, Jeremiah 11. There's a reason it's connected. Okay. But in John 15, let's understand what's going on here. Every branch in me, that is somebody whose current status is covenanted. But covenant is not a permanent status, just like it wasn't in Jeremiah 11 or in Romans 11. Every branch in me that doesn't bear fruit, he's going to take it away. In other words, if I've called you, opened your eyes and opened your ears, and you do nothing with it, don't we have other parables that talk about that, like the parable of the talents? Even the guy who did nothing with it, even what he had will be taken away. So let's remember that. He says, but every branch that bears fruit, he prunes, because even if you're bearing fruit, don't get all full of yourself. You're still going to need pruning. Why? Because then you can bear more fruit. It's just that it bears more fruit. You are already clean because of the word which I've spoken to you. Stay in me. Why would he say stay in me unless he knew that you could choose to not stay in him? There's no status called once saved, always saved. Go listen to the Are You Saved teaching. Stay in me and I stay in you. Did you notice that he didn't say, I stay in you, then you stay in me? He said, no, you stay in me and I stay in you. You walk away, then you're walking away from me. I'm not following you. You stay with me. If you and him are separated, it's because one of you moved and it's not him. He's not following you. You're following him. Stay in me. As the branch is unable to bear fruit of itself unless it stays in the vine, so neither you unless you stay in me. The branch is unable to bear itself. It has to be connected into the vine. The root bears the branches, not the other way around, Romans 11. Let's not be thinking the other way around. He goes, I am the vine, you are the branches. He who stays in me and I in him, he bears much fruit. But notice it's an if. The one who stays in me and I in him will bear much fruit. Because without me, you are able to do nothing. If anyone does not stay in me, he's thrown away as a branch that dries up, and they gather them and throw them into the fire, and they're burned. It doesn't say anybody does not stay in me, you're going to hell and burn forever and be tortured. It does not say that, does it? Has anybody made a fire? What's the stuff you want to start that with? The stuff that's dried up, broken into small pieces, and it burns really quickly. That's what he's talking about here. You're going to dry up and just go poof, burn up. If you stay in me and my words stay in you, now he's being more specific. What does it mean to stay in him and have him stay in you? His words. Don't turn this into some esoteric, ooey gooey, the Ruach is flowing through and Yeshua is just in me, blah, blah, blah. No, he's saying, look, if you stay in me, my words stay in you. And you shall ask whatever you wish, and it shall be done for you if you're asking according to that word. And we talk in other places about the same thing. So let's understand as we go through this what it's talking about. In this my Father is esteemed, that you bear much fruit, and you shall be my students, my Talmudim, my students, my taught ones. As the Father has loved me, I have also loved you. Stay in my love. He just told us about the words. If you love me, keep my commandments. The Torah was given out of love. What people, what nation is there that has their Elohim so close and has such great laws as this, we're told, in the journey out of Egypt? We read those verses. What other nation has such great things? You talk to the Jewish people, they will tell you the Torah was given to us because of how much he loved us. You talk to a Christian, the Torah was given as torture, an unbearable burden. It was a punishment. Listen to Melchizedekian guys out there. The Torah was a punishment. The stuff that was against us. Really? Come on. He says here, if you stay in me and my words stay in you. What are his words? Anything that was a thus said Yahweh. Go back and listen to the teaching on do you know the Father and the Son. When he said the commandments, the Messiah was saying the commandments. The law, the Torah, is his words. If you stay in me and my words, my laws, my instructions, my path to life, the light stays in you, you shall ask whatever you wish, and it shall be done. Now, you're not asking just whatever you wish, just in general. You are doing it in the context of being infused and filled to overflowing with him, with his words, so you wouldn't ask dumb things. So it's not like he became your little genie now that you can just rub and ask him for whatever you want. He's expecting that you to do it in his authority correctly. So that why? If you do this, in this my Father is honored, is esteemed, that you bear much fruit and you shall be my students. As the Father has loved me, I have also loved you. Stay in my love. If you guard my commands, you shall stay in my love. Are we not clear enough yet? If there was any confusion, he says it right there. This is what I mean by what I just said. He says, I just told you about staying in my love and the Father loving me and I love you. What do I mean? I mean, if you guard my commands, this demonstrates that you're staying in my love. Even as I have guarded my Father's commands and stay in his love. Oh no, love doesn't have anything to do with works. Really? He wants you to do his stuff. And when you do his stuff, you demonstrate your love. Because he gave you the stuff to do because of his love. Because giving you the instructions takes all of the guessing and the error out of our trying to please him and to please each other. He tells us the right way to do it. Takes all the frustration away, all the confusion, and all the wrong stepping, if we would just do it his way. These words I've spoken to you so that my joy might be in you and that your joy might be complete. I mentioned this last night as part of the Erev Shabbat, right? And the Rosh Chodesh. He wants us to be overflowing with joy. Not just any level of joy, his level of joy. That's the highest level you could possibly have. That my joy might be in you and that your joy may find completeness. By the way, that here where it talks about joy being complete, that's the same word that when he says, I came, to fulfill the law. Right? When we read about that, he says, I didn't come to destroy, but to fulfill. And they say, okay, see, the law is fulfilled, so it's done away with. Well, guess what? By that same token, joy is done away with. So stop it. I saw you're smiling and joy. No joy. He wants us to be joyless. No, he says, I want you to have filledness of joy. He's like, I want it to be filled to overflowing. He said, I didn't come to destroy. I came to show you the fulfillment of it, the fullness of it, the ultimate example of what it looks like. Not doing away with it. Look, use equal weights and equal measures. Don't tell me the law was done away with for the exact same phrase, but don't tell me the joy is not done away with. Same phrase. This is my command, that you love one another as I have loved you. Okay, so it's not just love your neighbor as yourself. Now it's a much harder thing. You have to love your neighbor as he loves you, not the neighbor as Yeshua loves you. That's when it really gets tough. Because love your neighbor as yourself, some of you don't even like yourselves. It's not going to work very well. If you don't even like you. He says, this is my command, that you love one another as I have loved you. No one has greater love than this, that one should lay down his life for his friends. You won't lay down anything for your friends. We are so stubborn and self-possessed and need everybody to be doing everything our way. Lay stuff down. Let it go. You are my friends if you do whatever I command you. What makes us his friends is doing what he says. No longer do I call you servants, for a servant does not know what his master is doing, but I have called you friends, for all teachings that I have heard from my Father I have made known to you. You did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you that you should go and bear fruit, and that your fruit should remain, so that whatever you ask the Father in my authority, he might give you. But the reason that would be that way is because you were chosen and appointed, and then you chose to obey and submit. That's how this would all work out at the end of that verse. These words I've commanded you, so that you love one another. If the world hates you, you know that it hated me before it hated you. If you were of the world would love its own. But because you are not of the world, but I chose you out of the world, for that reason the world hates you. Now remember, this is all about what? Covenant. They are covenanted with him, and as covenanted people, you are not of the world, but you're still in the world. And so if you're hated, you understand why. Remember, he's talking about, when he starts with every branch in me, he's talking about those that are covenanted. That's the translation I'm going to put there. You don't have to agree with me. So everything in John 15 is his prayer for those that are covenanted. He says, remember the word that I said to you, a servant is not greater than his master. If they persecuted me, they shall persecute you too. If they have guarded my word, they would have guarded yours too. But all this they shall do to you because of my name, my authority, because they do not know him who sent me. In other words, they have not chosen to submit to Yeshua. We get the good stuff he says in here because of submission. Because of submission, he'll do what we ask. Not do what we ask from our authority, because we're going to ask things that are in line with his authority. Because if you were in his authority, you would ask dumb stuff that shows that you're still sitting on the throne. You would only ask stuff that's in line with his authority. What verse did I leave off of? 21. Okay? But all this they shall do to you because of my authority, because they do not know him who sent me. If I had not come and spoken to them, they would have no sin, but now they have no excuse for their sin. He who hates me hates my Father as well. If I did not do among them the works which no one else did, they would have no sin. But now they have both seen and have hated both me and my Father. By the way, do you notice in all these verses, there's clearly two beings. There's no three. If there's three, the poor ghost is always being left out, probably feels all depressed about it. Me and my Father are one. Not me and my Father and the ghost are one. There's two. The Ruach is a part of the equation, but not as a third entity. Listen to the teaching called Understanding the Ruach. Okay? Now, he says, but now they have both seen and have hated both me and my Father. But that the word might be filled, which was written in their Torah, they hated me without a cause. And when the Helper comes, whom I shall send to you from the Father, the Spirit of the truth, who comes from the Father, he shall bear witness of me. Now, I explained that in another teaching where we get much more into the whole, in John 14, when it talks about the giving of the Spirit. Okay? Where he absolutely makes it clear that it's himself. Let's just look at that real quickly here. Verse 16 of John 14. And I shall ask the Father, and he shall give you another helper to stay with you forever, the Spirit of truth, whom the world is unable to receive because it does not see him or know him. But you already know him, for he stays with you and shall be in you. And then if that's not clear enough, he says, I shall not leave you orphans. I am coming to you. But I'm coming in another form. So we're still talking about Yeshua here, not some different entity. The means by which this takes place is called the Ruach. That is how this happens. You don't feel him walking around in you. If you do, you need counseling. Okay. And call somebody else. Okay. That's above my skill set. Okay. And when the Helper comes, whom I shall send to you, the Father, the Spirit of truth, who comes from the Father, he shall bear witness of me, but you also bear witness because you have been with me from the beginning. Now, I'm going to only read one more verse in chapter 16. These words I have spoken to you, why? So that you do not stumble. It's a bad place for a chapter break. I would have put it after verse 1. Okay? I would have put that as the last verse in chapter 15. He said all this stuff so that you don't stumble. Stumble in what? Covenant keeping. That's the nature of our relationship with him, is a relationship called covenanting. And we see this playing out from Proverbs 5 as we try to understand the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding relationship in covenant keeping. We brought that into the idea of this woman with the honey sweet lips and the stumbling and the feet that she would lead you into places you shouldn't go because it leads to the grave. It's not a man to know where to put his own feet. It leads to death. Then we see how that connects up to this tree. Because remember, verses 16, 17, and 18 of Jeremiah 11 flowed through this whole place of decisions being made based on what? Decisions being made from the place, okay? From the place of, I'm going to do whatever in my own stubborn heart. Remember, that was earlier in the chapter. So doing things from your own stubborn heart in the idea of covenanting lead to a place where eventually you are having your branch cut off. Then we took that to Romans 11 and into John 15. And so hopefully this is starting to make some more sense and clarity. In other words, if you don't focus on doing what you're supposed to be doing, he may just take it away from you. So take it seriously and focus on it appropriately. Amen? All right, let's pray. Father, we come before you and we want to lift up your holy name. We want to lift up your word. We want to submit completely in covenant in the relationship with you and with Yeshua. And so, Father, we want to be in this vertical alignment where he says, I have chosen you, and you submit to me as I submit to the Father. And so, Father, let us be inspired and given strength and encouragement to submit to Yeshua, the Torah, the truth, the light, the life, the way, in the same way he was submitted to you. Let us learn to love each other as he loves us. So that, Father, that we can walk correctly and not be tempted to go left or right by the woman with the honey on the lips, whose feet seem like they go to a path that looks like it's your way, but it's not your way. And the only reason it looks like it's your way is because it's my way. In other words, the me in me likes it better. Help us to deal with that me, that I, that part of us that likes that other way better, that would be tempted to go her way instead of your way. Father, we love you, and we're just so desiring to only do what's right in your sight. We want to seek what's well-pleasing in your sight. Help us to do that as we strive to overcome flesh, to while we are in the world and not taken out of the world, we are striving not to be of the world. So, Father, we thank you, we praise you, we appreciate all that you're giving us at our feet here and our plate and the food that we can eat so that we can understand what is well-pleasing in your sight and then put it to work so that it can bear much fruit. Father, let us be those that will stay in Yeshua and bear fruit so that you never think to take away our branch and throw it in the fire. Father, we love you, we thank you, we praise you, and we give you all thanks and glory and honor in the name of all names, Yeshua our Messiah. Amen. 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 All right, so I guess that juicy little place I was going to go next has to wait till next week, which is okay. All right, so I hope this is making sense. I hope we have clarified a whole bunch of stuff. I know it was a little bit tough because some of the things required longer teachings, but I have those teachings. You know which ones I mentioned today. Are you saved? Do you know the Father and the Son? Understanding the Ruach. Discovering your identity. What else did I cover? What? Making decisions, the reason you exist. Thank you. So I think that was all of the ones I mentioned. Okay, Gadol class students, you should be writing those down and make sure you know them in case I quiz you on them. Okay, so this is the part we call the afterburn. So if you have got comments or questions on the teaching, you can raise your hands, and we'll have a microphone come around. Maurice is going to come and grab the mic. Okay, If you are on live stream, we've got Rob Wyatt's going to get the live stream questions and comments. Please keep them to what I talked about today. Please do not be mad at me if I refer you to a teaching rather than answer your question, because some of your questions will be better answered in an extensive teaching rather than in a 2-minute quick answer. Okay? So please be okay with that. If you really want the answer. I mean, if you just want a soundbite, well, I'm sorry about that. But if you really want the answer, it may require you to make the effort to listen to a few hours of teaching to get it. Now remember, I don't sell them, so it's not like I want to get you to, I just want, that to me is the best way to give you the answer sometimes, is to tell you, Father and the Son teaching is 11 parts. You need to hear all 11 parts of that. Understanding the Ruach, I don't remember. What's it, 7 or 8 parts, or whatever it is. 8, okay? You need to listen to that if you want to understand the subject matter. At least if you understand where I'm coming from. Because I can't give it to you in a soundbite. The grace teaching, I didn't name it, but we talked quite a bit about that in Romans, under the search for the doctrine of grace. 14 parts. Don't be afraid of it. It took that long to explain it correctly. Okay, or I should say correctly. I don't want to sound arrogant. It took that long to explain my point and my position thoroughly. Okay? The what? Oh, it ended too soon? Oh. Okay, 14 parts is all you get. Now, what are you, just like brother, like sister? I'm being tag teamed by brother and sister here. She wanted more grace, and he's like, oh, when I said no. Okay. Now, as your sort of virtual father, knock it off. Okay. And that's only because I literally am, that's not like I think I'm like a father to everybody, but I've kind of adopted them. Okay. Afterburn, take 2. All right. Who's going to start us off with a comment or question? Okay, Candace, go ahead.
Okay. When I was in the Christian church, the fruit in here that we were reading about, bearing fruit, I got the opinion that they were talking about bringing souls in. Go knock doors and stuff like that, bring souls in. But what I'm getting from what you're teaching, the fruit would be more like the life-changing attitudes that are in us that become more like Yeshua?
Correct. And it's not just the attitude, it's the behaviors. That includes Torah observance. So it's the 2 great commands. The fruit will be you're going to be loving him more by doing what he wants us to do to show our love to him. And that you'll be doing loving each other more by doing the Torah parts that have to do with loving each other. So it's about the fruit of the changing from what we are into what he is through the walking out of the halakha of Torah. Okay? And that's why he links it to, if you love me, you'll keep my commands. Guard after the commands. Now, we didn't read that in John 14, but the whole giving of the Ruach starts with the verse that says, if you love me, guard my commands, and then, if you do that, I will send you the Ruach. People usually think, oh, we get the Spirit first. No. He says, if you love me, you'll guard my commands, and then I will send you the Spirit. Because then what the Spirit's going to do is tell you how those commands play out and why they're important and how you're to apply them and how it transforms you. Until you understand the material, there's no need for the Ruach at that point. Put the material in and the Ruach helps piece it together for you. Who's next? All right, bring it to the live stream. After 33 parts, you guys are kind of getting it. That's good. I have no idea how long this is going to go. We haven't even gotten near the New Testament.
Hey, Rabbi, I had a quick question. On verse, in John 15, verse 25, it says, but the word might be filled, but that the word might be fulfilled, which was written in their Torah.
Oh, I knew somebody was going to say that. I forgot to mention it. Okay.
Can you expound on that?
Well, because he happens to be talking to a group of people that are dealing in the Jewish community. Okay? And so sometimes it's like when Yahweh says to Moses, your people that you brought out of Egypt. So here Yeshua is saying their Torah. In other words, they should know better. It's in the book. Okay? He said, if I did not do among them, I was talking about the Jewish people specifically here, okay? And he said, the works which no one else did, they would have no sin. But now they have both seen and have hated both me and my Father, but that the word might be fulfilled as written in their book. It's in their book. They know it. Okay? So it's not that the Torah is theirs, and that's where Christians maybe get the mistake of saying, well, that's the Jewish stuff. No. He was using that kind of a literary sort of way, a writing choice to make the point, just like when Yahweh says to Moses, well, your people that you took out of Egypt, because they weren't his people and Moses didn't do the taking, right? He just did the leading. But he's trying to make a point. So here I think, and I actually have it circled in my book to kind of cover that, and I didn't get to do that. Okay, does that make sense? Okay. Okay, because remember, he's talking specifically about this group of people that are about to go ahead and kill him. And he said that they have seen, they've hated me without a cause. Dawid?
I had a comment, a thought that I was basically dealing with, because you were talking about the entire journey and the plan of Abba, how they would mess this up and they would basically, to a certain extent, fall. And then the nations would be drawn in because of that, and then they'd get jealous and get back in. And that we weren't supposed to be arrogant and this, that, and the other, being of the nations. The thought was basically that what surprises us doesn't necessarily surprise him. He's never on the defensive. He's always on the offensive because that's what he's, not saying that he's offensive, but you know what I mean?
He's proactive.
Yeah, he's proactive. Right. And so we shouldn't be surprised necessarily because he's never surprised by anything that happens. Anything that comes against us that is a surprise to us, well, it's not a surprise to him. He knew this was happening. He either caused it or allowed it.
Exactly. Okay? Look, he knew that this particular time frame that the Jewish people in Israel were going to reject Yeshua because he was not going to do what they wanted him to do at that time. Okay? And in that rejection, it opened the doors to bring the message to those who would receive it. And that was the beginning with the Gentiles. And we see how that has grown over the years and centuries, and Judah was not ready for that message. They're still not ready for that message in a big way. I mean, small parts of them, I don't mean in a big way like big time, I mean like the majority of them are not ready for that message, okay? But there are some, like myself, okay, who are ready for the message. Okay, who's next? Are we back at the live stream? Go ahead, Rob.
Okay, from Janet Hoffman. If not everyone whose eyes are open receive him, should we then pray for those hearts to receive him, or is this an individual decision that cannot be affected by prayer?
I'll go with probably a little of both. Look, we can pray for everybody to because that's our heart's desire. We want everybody to get it, especially those who we love and we're friends with and we're family members with, etc. But recognize that that's just us expressing to our Father what we feel. Prayer is not magic. It's not manipulation. It doesn't pressure Abba. He's still going to do what he's going to do. But it does express to him where your heart's at. I think he likes to hear that we have a lot of compassion, a lot of love and concern and desire for all those we know to come into truth. But it's not like if we hit critical mass and have enough prayer, it forces his hand. He's going to heal who he heals. He's going to open eyes who he opens eyes. He's going to do whatever he does. He's going to do what he does. So do I think our prayers in general from that point? No. Now it says the prayers of a righteous man avail a lot. There's an effectiveness there. But the righteous man is going to be coming from in that case, we're talking about a very much more high level, like a tzaddik. He's coming from a different place. He sees the bigger picture. His prayers are going to be more in line with what he sees the Father doing. But again, we have to be careful. We don't think of it as this sort of, he has to do what we want. And I think that comes through Christianity quite a bit. That whole idea of Messiah being your personal Messiah. Okay, and I've often said he's not your personal anything. You're his personal something. He bought and paid for you. Right? Okay? All right, any other questions?
From question 2 from Janet Hoffman. Also, what did Yeshua mean when he said, "You are already clean because of the word which I have spoken to you"? He's referring to John 15:3.
I have no idea. Next question. Now look, remember we're talking about here in this idea is he's talking about that part, he's talking about status, right? He's saying every branch in me, that's sort of a status, or a branch in him. But that branch in him is not a status as like a once saved, always saved status. It's just a status of when you covenant, you're a branch in him. But you could choose to break it. And he says, you are already clean. Clean is a status. We call that tahor. There's also a status called tameh, unclean. He said, but you are already clean because of the Torah, because of the word which I've spoken to you. He says, in other words, I've already cleaned you up. I've already set you on the right path. Now you are in the every branch in me category. So because of that, stay in me. Remember, that you already clean comes in between the every branch in me and the stay in me. So he wants to make sure that he's talking to his disciples and says to them, so it's clear you're in this already every branch in me category. You are in that category. You are clean because of the word. Now that you know that you're clean, you're tahor, stay in me. Okay, next question.
All right, from Sean, and in John 15:22, Yeshua says, if I had not come and spoken to them, they would have no sin, but now they have no excuse for their sin. Is he referring to when he spoke at Mount Sinai?
No, he's talking about specifically this particular group of people that are about to reject him and kill him. This is the hated me without a cause thing. This is remember, this is happening right before, he's about to get killed. And so we have, if you go back to chapter 13, this is all happening between Passover, coming to that Last Supper, right? The Last Supper is in chapter 13. And all of this stuff that's happening here is leading up to his last prayer in chapter 17 and them coming to get him in 18. So this is happening in a very tight window. He's making some comments, last-minute comments to his students to understand the society and the people that he's been dealing with up to this point and their consequences and what he's expecting then of his disciples. So remember, context is always important, always key. And so the context is that if you have to know when this is happening. Remember, context is who's speaking? Yeshua. Who's he talking to? His disciples. It's not like an open-air discussion, okay? He's talking to his disciples because this is after the Last Supper. This is as we're leading into Passover. So this is all happening in a very tight window from the night before Passover till Passover. So this is all happening in 24 hours. Okay? This is happening really quick. Actually, it's happening quicker when you think about it. He had the Last Supper, and then he goes through all these discussions, and then he's talking about people staying up with him, and he's talking about all these other last things. This is all quick stuff. And so it's in the context of, you guys, I'm preparing you for what's about to happen to me, and for you to think correctly about those who are about to do this to me. So don't get so mad at them. This was planned and prophesied to happen, that they would do this. Just like when he said to Judas, do what you do it quickly. He knew who was going to do it. He knew what was going to happen. He had no surprises. Like David said, no surprises, right? And he could have known that Judas was going to do it and said, somebody tie him down, he's not going to do it, He knew exactly what he was going to do. It had to be done. And by it had to be done, meaning they already know the end from the beginning. He already knew that's how this happens. This story plays out this way, and anything you do to stop it will not get you to the end place that they all wanted to actually get to. Okay? I hate to use, maybe this is a really terrible analogy. Okay? But maybe it's a great analogy. Some of you are going to be mad at this, but I'm not going to ask you to raise hands, but a lot of you watched Infinity Wars. Okay, you watched Avengers Infinity War. And in that movie, at the end, Doctor Strange went through in his using his little time stone every scenario he could think of that could play out for the decision that would be made at that moment, and what kind of end result it would play out as it played out into a future. And realized there was only one that worked. But that's Yahweh. I'm not saying he's Dr. Strange. Yahweh has seen and can see at all times all of it. If this happens, then the next thing, it's kind of like playing chess, right? You have to think, if I do this, what is the person next going to do? You're not always sure. Yahweh is always sure. He knows if I do this, you'll do that. And if this person does that, then they'll do this, and knows where it ends up. Okay? You know, it's kind of like a phrase that I tried to say, I think I said it last night, butchered a bunch of times, which is, you know, if you're not careful, you'll end up where you're going. Okay? But because you're already headed somewhere. But Abba has the ability to see all of that play out and know exactly where it's headed. So if anybody had intervened with Rehoboam and Jeroboam, it would have been a different result playing out a whole different way. That wasn't the way Abba wanted it to play out, so he said, leave them alone. This is of me. Right? Okay? The same thing is happening with Judas. Yeshua could have stopped him anytime he wanted to. When they arrested him, he said, I could call a legion of angels to come down. But then it wouldn't have played out the way it needed to play out. This is the one scenario that gets the result Yahweh wants. So he doesn't really get involved in too many parts of it unless he's making sure that it continues on the timeline he wants. And he knows how each person is going to react along that timeline. Does it make sense? So the only reason I use that movie analogy because that's essentially what that character was doing. Was saying, if this happens, what happens next? If this happens, what happens next? To try to find any possible way of having it play out that there's a chance that it could work. And then he said, I only found one. But it didn't look like it made any sense because he actually looks like he's doing something dumb. He gives up the stone and everything, whatever. But he said, but this is the only one that works. Well, guess what? In this scenario, the only way this works is Yeshua had to come. He had to die. All of us wish that wasn't necessary. But it was. And in it, a lot of other awful things had to happen. But apparently it was necessary to ultimately get to that place in the end where it all works right. And so hopefully that we can understand that and then we can embrace. So when we're looking at these things play through, let's just understand that this is in context right when this is happening. So it's not that who's talking, who's he talking, etc. But what is actually happening at this moment? This is that moment between the Last Supper and the arrest. There's not a lot of time in there. Okay, between the Last Supper and his arrest. Because in chapter 18 he gets arrested. Okay, chapter 13, we're having the Last Supper. Not a lot. That's a lot of stuff, conversation happening in a short window. So he's trying to get them ready for what's coming. And he knows they're not ready for it because he's told them over and over again, they're going to arrest me, they're going to kill me, everything else, and they're still not getting it. They're just not. Because in their head, he's Mashiach the way they think he should be. Kingdom's coming now. He's going to destroy the Romans and free us from everybody, like the Egyptian one. The plagues are going to come flying down. We're all going to win, and that's it. But that's not what he came to do this time. Next time is another story. Everything that they had hoped for, and then some. Okay? Next question.
From Crystal McGee. Is it oversimplifying Romans 11, verse 6, by saying favor is favor, work is work, don't turn one into the other, otherwise both are meaningless?
I'll go with that. That'll work. That'll work. And thank you for doing the favor. Okay. No, that's not oversimplifying it. I think that's important. You know, it's Paul that doesn't do us any favors by using the language he uses to make the points he makes. Okay? And I think it would make a lot more sense if we were reading it in Hebrew the way he originally probably wrote it. Okay, but translating it through Greek and then English, etc., did not help us any. Okay? Because remember, each one is trying to take a possible... Look, there's a time when work can mean toil and effort. There's a time when work can mean doing a work, doing something that produces something, okay? So the Greek word here can be translated in multiple different ways. And we have to choose the right way. Well, guess what? Every translator's had to make those choices. And they are making it through their experience and their understanding at the time. And so I don't think any of them were probably doing anything, insidious or nefarious to cause a problem. They were just doing it thinking they were making it say what it's supposed to say. But they only could filter it through their understanding at the time. Now, we have an advantage to the person who originally translated Romans. That person probably did not have the entirety of all this. They didn't have a whole scriptures. And so they couldn't actually make sure that whatever their translation was would be consistent with what everything else says. In other words, the translator would not necessarily know what it can't say. And by the way, figuring out what something can't say is probably not only as important, maybe even more important than figuring out what it does say. Because then you'll have a much better shot of getting it right, what it does say, once you realize what it can't say. Like when people come to me and say, well, Paul said blah, 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 and I always look them in the eye and say, fine, if that's true, then he's a heretic, you need to throw him out. Because if you're going to tell me that Paul did away with the law and said you could do this and that and all this other stuff, fine, if that's true, because that's out of bounds with the rest of the book, then he's a heretic, throw him out. Or, just maybe, you're not understanding him correctly. I prefer the second one. I prefer to believe that Paul knew exactly what he was talking about, was not a heretic, and just confused the you-know-what out of us because he was speaking to people that only understood exactly what he was talking about. Because I don't think Paul had one thought in his head that you and I would ever read the letter to the Romans, or Galatians, or Corinthians, or any other letter he wrote. Those are private letters between him and his group, and he probably never thought anybody other than those groups. As a matter of fact, I'm sure he never thought that the Corinthians would read the letter to the Galatians and vice versa. There were letters to particular groups, private letters, of which we're gleaning all kinds of wonderful stuff out of them. I get that. But I don't think Paul ever thought this was going to become doctrine, quote unquote. What else you got?
Okay, from LaDonna, Yeshua said, if we seek him with all our hearts and we find him, does this not have a bearing on why those still in the denominational churches are still blind?
No, look, the seeking him, a lot of you sought him and found the denominational churches as an answer to your seeking him. The opening up the eyes is just him deciding when you're ready and who's ready and when. That's his choice. He understands, he knows. And a lot of you have said, I don't know why he picked me when he did. I can say the same thing. I don't know why he picked me when he did. I'm chugging along. I'm a college kid. I'm in my early 20s. I don't know why he picked me when he did. But he did. Okay? And I promise you that, actually, this is going to be a good example. You said about asking and seeking and desiring. He called me and showed me at a moment when I wanted to find him. But I didn't want to find him because I just desired to find him. I wanted to find him because I needed answers I wasn't finding. In other words, back to the journey video. He poked me and disturbed my peace, and then I responded with acting in that I don't want to say aggressive, but I was very actively wanting to get answers. So yes, from that point of view, he still initiates it with the poke, with the disturbing of your peace. Then you, if you respond with the, I need to know, I need an answer, this itch that I can't scratch, I need to get that, that is part of the process, okay? He wants to see how well you respond. He may disturb your peace and you go, I don't care, okay? And some of you know people like that. You know he disturbed their peace and they don't care. Don't judge them. Sad. So yes, I think he does give a certain amount of response to how the level of our response, but we're still responding to something he did. It's not us just what prompted you, the person who ever wrote this question, what prompted you to seek him so actively? Go back another level. Oh, because he did something in your life that made you need to have a more relationship. Get answers, seek him, whatever it was. That peace-disturbing moment. Okay? Next question.
From Cheryl W., would the love we show to or feel for the Father be defined differently than the love we feel for another person? Is it measured by our joy in obedience to him?
Look, you're always going to have a difference in how you feel about someone you can physically touch, see, and interact with than the invisible Elohim. You can't possibly feel the same. So I'm not saying what the right way is to be and which way it is, but we are given physical bodies with 5 senses, and they're stimulated through sound and sight and taste and touch and all these other things, right? So that's different than this relationship with one that we cannot see and physically interact with. So I can't say that we express love in the same way to both. It's not going to be that way. The love we have to the Father comes from an appreciation of giving us hope, answers, interventions in our life, the small miracles, the great miracles that help us get through life, and then we have a love. Remember, go back to Deuteronomy 10:12. Hey, we haven't used the Deuteronomy 10:12 in a while. Right? It says, and now Israel, what does Yahweh want of you? But to fear him and to walk in all his ways. And then it says, and to love him. Why? Because when you fear him and walk in his ways, you discover how much he loves you. And so then you start to love him. The way I feel about my wife and the way that love developed was from a whole different perspective. Okay, there was a physical attraction, then there was an intellectual and emotional attraction as we spent time together. It's a whole different type of thing. We found certain things in common, and we spent time together. It's different than you would do with Yahweh, okay? So that's why we have 2 great commands, to love him and to love each other. We don't love each other and love him in the same exact way. It comes out in different ways. So that's why Yeshua says, I want you to love each other as I have loved you. See, he came in the flesh. We see what it looked like. We see how he gave of himself. That was one of the reasons he had to come in the flesh, so we could see what that would look like, instead of just dealing with the invisible. Does it make sense? Okay? So it's not going to come out the same. Your love for each other is going to have a very different look in a lot of ways than your love for your Creator. All right, next question. You guys are asking tough ones today.
From Marianne Gibson, do I continue to pray for my broken family?
Of course. You can pray for anything. What you don't want to pray for is those that are in abject rebellion. That was what we read the other week. We're talking about those that are actively in rebellion. He says, don't pray to them. He says, I'm not going to listen. Okay? So those that you know better and are actively rebelling, you could pray Abba to be, somewhat merciful in his punishments, but I really want to pray, just pray that they see what they need to see and learn what they need to learn so they fix it. Okay? But don't pray against the punishment, the chastisement, and the consequences. But as far as your broken family, if everybody that you know that's not covenanted, pray fervently for them. That their eyes should be open, it would change their lives, just like it did for you. Okay? And all that brokenness can be healed. The only time he tells us not to pray is if someone is in rebellion and praying against their consequences. All right? Now, if they're in rebellion, pray that they come out of rebellion. But don't pray for anything that has to do with their consequences. Oh, Father, take away their consequences. They're really good people. They do blah, 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 blah. Like, you know what? You don't know anything about all that stuff. Abba, I pray that they learn what they need to learn and fix what they need to fix. Okay? Does that make sense? Is that fair? There's nobody you can't pray for. It's just about how you do it that makes the difference. How about I make it that way? All right? There is nobody you can't pray for. Just what you're praying for will be different depending on what they're doing and how they ended up where they ended up. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's not ask any more questions about, can I pray for this or can I pray for that person? Pray for everybody. Just don't pray against the plan of what Yahweh's already laid in place. Don't pray against his will. That's why he says, if you stay in me and I in you, then you'll ask things correctly and things will be done. Because you'll know what to ask. It'll be in the right framework. That's what he was saying in John 15. Okay, go ahead.
This is from Norma Silva. She's relating it back to Janet Hoffman's first question. It's talking about those that reject him now, are they still going to have another opportunity?
All right, he was specifically talking about those people. Let's not do and I'm not picking on you, let's not do the Christian thing where we take stuff that was for specific people and globalize it, okay? The only way to globalize that piece is that if you were in full understanding and that you are fully open and aware, and then you choose to reject, you're in probably some deep trouble. And I'm not at a high enough pay grade to decide whether you get a chance, another chance, or what chance you even had in the first place. Because when you say another chance, we don't know what kind of chance they've already had or not. We're making assumptions. Okay? Let's all understand that we all suffer from a psycho-emotional dysfunction. It's called filling in blanks when we don't have answers, so we just do it ourselves. That is a psycho-emotional dysfunction. It will cause you all kinds of issues in all your relationships. Recognize that you know a lot less about everything than you think you do. When you see somebody doing something, you know very little about what they're doing, why they're doing it, what's driving it. Don't guess. Don't make assumptions. Even if they tell you, you still don't really know, because they may not really know what's driving them. Always come from the place like forgive them, Father, they don't know what they're doing, I don't know what they're doing, whatever it is. Now, Yeshua knew what they were doing, but he said, forgive them, they don't know what they're doing. Okay? Let's not be trying to figure out. See, everybody loves to focus on these verses, and I'm not picking on you, that talk about if you reject him, if you do this, if you do that, then you're toast. Everybody's afraid they're going to be toast. Stop worrying about that. Make every effort to do what you need to do with your hope and trust that it will be pleasing in his sight. Now we get Deuteronomy 8:2 in it, all right? That he's looking to see if it's in your heart to make the effort. Are you going to show it's in your heart to keep his commandments or not? Oh, but I mess them up all the time. Yes, but does it bother you? Yes, well, that's good. When it stops bothering you, that's bad. Okay? When your disobedience no longer bothers you, you're probably in a lot of trouble. Am I clear with that? You are going to mess up. But it needs to bother you when you mess up. And not so much that you get so depressed and beat yourself up, but that you get determined to stand up and fix it and do it right the next time. Some of you are that way with your silly little video games. Well, I didn't get 3 stars. I'm going to keep playing it till I get 3 stars. So you look at it as a failure when you get 2 or 1. And you're going to keep doing it. Do that in your life with everything. Don't beat yourself up because you fell short. Get up and do it again. Get up and fix it. Get up and make adjustments. Learn from the effort. In some ways, I'm going to say this to everybody. In some ways, video games are the worst thing that was ever invented. But in some ways, they're actually good. You know why? Because I've watched certain children who play games have no more fear of losing. Because you lose all the time, and that's how you get good. That's a great lesson. Society's trying to take that lesson away. Everybody wins. When you play video games, guess what? You don't win most of the time until you lose enough to learn and make a mistake and learn and make a mistake and learn. Then you get good at it. Okay? I watched with my 2 children, not picking on them. My son played a lot of video games when he was a little bit younger, much more than my daughter did. So when I would play something with my daughter and she would lose, she would flip out. Like most little kids do. My son would lose, no big deal, let's play again. Lose all the time. Then she started playing more video games. Not that I'm advocating video games, I'm just making a point. And she lost much more often and realized that she got good. The more she lost, the more she got better. She no longer flips out when she loses. Because they learn that losing is not the problem. It's what do you do next? Did you learn something? And out of the seeds of that failure in your mind, you may see it as failure, are the seeds of the success that's coming. And so let's realize that as you go forward. So when it comes to these questions, we're all afraid. Listen, Christianity did this to you. They brainwashed you and they screwed up your heads to make you afraid that you're going to do something that dooms you. Stop that. Okay? I can't find verses in here that tells you if you do blah, 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 you're doomed. Okay? That's Christianity's lever to make you afraid and to make you do things their way. He's all about the effort. Do you want to get it right? You know when I'll be concerned? When you stop wanting to get it right. When you don't care anymore. Well, you know you should be doing that. Yeah, I know, I don't care. Now you're in trouble. And actually, at that point, you don't care. And I'm not being a wise guy. If you don't care, you just don't care. But as long as you care, I believe you'll be fine. As long as you're making the effort and it bothers you when you fail. Does that make sense? So hopefully that helps. Because everybody loves to look for those verses. And again, I'm not picking on the person who asked the question. It's a common enough mindset that Christianity has instilled in everybody. You look at that verse and you go, oh, is that me? Did I do that? Am I doomed? Stop that. The fact that you're all worried about it means you're probably not doomed. Because you're concerned and you want to make sure you're not doing anything wrong. But don't beat yourself up when you fall short. All have fallen short. All have sinned. All are worthy of death. That's why we needed Yeshua to do what he did. Now we go back to Deuteronomy 8:2, where he says that he's leading us through this wilderness called life. He was talking about the Israelites in Egypt, but he led them out that wilderness to see our heart. And if your heart is to please him, if your heart is to do what's right, if your heart is to be upset when you fail, your heart is correct, your heart is right in that place, and I think you'll be fine. Okay? Only you know the effort you put in. So you put in the effort. But I fail all the time, Rabbi. So do I. What do you think? I'm not a human being like everybody else? All of us fail. And then you'll see somebody else that looks like they never fail. Well, they're just good at hiding it in public, or they just don't do things that are failures in public. Maybe they fail a ton at home when they're by themselves. But we all fall short. Scripture tells us that. I believe what it says. Don't think everybody's doing better than you are. They're not. I know. I counsel almost everybody. Nobody's doing better than anybody. Okay? Promise you that. Some are just better at either hiding it in public or whatever they're struggling with just happens not to be a public thing. Nobody is struggling more than you are. Nobody. So be encouraged that everybody's on the same page. You all got the same struggle. It's called life. Life is hard, and apparently we all suck at it. Okay? I said that the other day. Life is the problem, and we all live in life. We live in the world. We're not of the world. This makes it hard. He told us that in John. We read that, Father. And in John 17, he says the same thing. He says, Father, I'm not praying that you take them out of the world, but they not be of the world. But in the world, he says, they hated me, they're going to hate you. Life will be tough trying to obey and follow his path. And that's the world we live in. It's designed to be against us. Not by the great designer, but the one in charge right now who's running around like a crazy being, instigating all kinds of problems. Encouraging everybody to do all their the base instincts of our flesh. And that's the world we're in. But in that world, if your heart's right, you'll make an effort. It won't always work, but you keep making the effort and keep making the effort. Just like you learned how to walk. Oh, you fell a ton. But you learned how to walk. Okay? Any other questions? Are we good? That was a good place to end then. That was good. All right, let's get the children from upstairs. Okay, Raphael's going to go up and get them. Raphael, some are outside also. All right, so we're going to get the children. Hopefully this is helping. This is making some sense. All right? And every day that we go through this, just realize that some of the things we struggle with is because we were all well-churched and the church did not help us in what we understand. It just didn't. Okay? Now, they did not do it in an evil, nefarious way. At least not generationally. Maybe some of the people at the beginning were trying to do some things, but it's being continued by people that think they're doing right. And we're going to read over and over again that there are people that thinking they're doing good are going to turn us over. I think that was just a little bit further in, let me see where I was reading today. I think that was just coming up in John. No, I guess not. Anyway. We getting the children in? Good, they're coming. Got to get used to this new microphone, like right on the cheek. All right, looks like we got a lot of the children coming in now. Okay, wherever the mic is, let's get it to Michael. So where did the mic, you brought it back up here? Okay. So bring it to Michael Long. He's going to close us. All right, so are we missing Gadol kids? What are we missing? We're missing the little ones? Katan A? Okay. We will get the TVs upstairs working more effectively so that we can make sure that they know when we end. Oh, the walkie-talkie, that'll work. I have them. I just got to bring them. Rebbetzin, remind me to bring the walkie-talkies that I have from the feast. No. Why would I know where they are? No, I do know where they are. I know they're in the basement at the other house. I do know where they are. They are. They're actually on the table in the hallway there. I got to bring the walkie-talkies, then we can just have somebody in the back, By the way, David, my water is finally defrosted on the level you put the refrigerator in my office. I think you had it on maximum. So it tastes really good and cold now. When I took it out, it was a block of ice. All right, we got some of the littles. Glenna, was there anybody else upstairs with the babies? Was there anybody else upstairs with the babies? They're coming? Okay. All right, we're just stalling here a little bit for the children. Next week, we have a lot of fun dealing with the idea of being unstable. So actually, it worked out that I had other things today, so we didn't even have to start into that without waiting until next week. So that was good. Okay, who are we still waiting on? The Olive class is still coming. Okay. Okay, here come some of them. Yeah, they are, the little ones. Okay, here comes the Olive class. Oh, look, they've got all kinds of wonderful crafts that they made. There they are. Fantastic. All right, is that everybody now? All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to close in prayer. After we close in prayer, those who would like to can come up here, and we're going to wave Shabbat Shalom to everybody on the live stream. For all you on live stream, I hope you caught all of those Illuminati hand signals that I've been doing. I move my hands a lot, and people accuse me of doing things, and, It's crazy. All right, so if you'll all rise, we'll close in prayer. Okay, and Michael Long is going to lead us in the closing prayer. Michael, go ahead.
Father Yahweh, we come before you to thank you for this day of life as it's truly meant to be lived, the life that we'll have again someday when your kingdom comes. We ask that you please be with us throughout this week when it's not the way life is meant to be lived, but the fleshly life. We ask that you help us to walk through this wilderness with keeping our dignity, and ask that you help us to walk through this week in a way that doesn't bring you dishonor. We ask that you be with us and then strengthen us in a way that only can come from you. We ask that you please help us to realize as we're walking through the wilderness why, so that this bitter that we're enduring right now will only make the sweet to come that much sweeter. In all this, we come before you and pray to you through the name and the authority of your Son, Yeshua, our Messiah. Hallelujah and amen.
Amen. Amen. Excellent. Thank you. All right, those who want to come up here to wave to our brothers and sisters in live stream, the extended family. What you got there, buddy? Look at that.
Very nice. You did a good job. Where's Steven? What happened to Steven?
He's on camera. Well, he was.
I haven't seen him for a while. Oh, wait, he's back there.
He's working the switch.
That's why I haven't seen him.
Okay.
Oh, I've seen him.
All right, let's get everybody up here. And Kirk will let us know if we got you all on camera.
See Candace?
Okay. Those of you that are close nearby me realize that you're probably getting picked up by the mic. That was just a way to intimidate them a little bit. Okay, we ready?
Yeah.
Everybody's good? All right, so we're going to do, on three, we're going to say Shabbat Shalom. It's also Rosh Chodesh, so we can say Rosh Chodesh Sameach and Shavua Tov, okay? Shabbat Shalom, Rosh Chodesh Sameach, Shavua Tov. All right, and of course, we love you. Okay, ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Shabbat We love you.
You write down my lines.
All right. Okay, William Backus.